Chapter 126. His whole being was poised and ready. No wonder I study the way of magic. If I don't have enough luck, then I'll plunder, then I'll learn from others' thought processes, get inspiration and defy fate. Brilliant. However, this academic fortune seems to be a rare thing no matter how one looks at it. In my Lake Ying fishery gang, I, Li Zheng, must be the child of luck. Wait a moment. Ring, ring, ring. As the class bell rang, Li Zheng turned to look at Lin Yujing. The latter, who had been snoozing, stretched lazily at her desk upon hearing the bell. She had no idea that she was being targeted by such a person. As she was packing her bag, Li Zheng had already approached her. Suddenly, I really want to discuss studying. Li Zheng rested his hands on her desk, his expression serious. Do you have any thoughts or methods? Let's exchange some ideas. Lin Yujing was greatly startled and scared into sweeping everything on the desk into her bag and running away with it. Li Zheng was left alone, disheartened. It seems that academic fortune, whether one tries to snatch it, or force learning, won't work either. No choice then, I'll just have to slowly research it. Afterward, Lin Yujing, too scared to play basketball, went home, and Su Mensi, seeing that Lin Yujing wasn't playing, also went back home. Left on the basketball court were just a group of men. And one Jiao Bixia. It's unclear whether her addiction is strong, or if she has other motives. Later, when Li Zheng got home, he didn't think much about academic fortune but instead took the time to complete several chemistry experiment textbooks provided by Yu Hong in 40 minutes. Compared to previous theories, these experimental materials were pitifully sparse, most of them compiled internally by universities. Although Li Zheng could understand them, without a practical environment, all he could do was rote memorization. Even though he was now a level 30 study demon, with a guaranteed 104 hours of vitality and the support of a chemistry frenzy buff. Once trapped in the pitfall of memorization, time passed like water. And the results were very minimal, the score only improved by 3 points. At 6:30 in the evening, when he closed his book, although he had memorized a lot of content, he was filled with confusion and had itchy hands. Like the recrystallization process. 1. Dissolve the substance to be recrystallized in a suitable solvent to create a supersaturated solution. 2. If the substance to be recrystallized contains colored impurities, add activated carbon and boil for decolorization. This damn memorization is really too difficult. And even if I remember it, what then? Such learning is very foolish, just like someone who has never been in a kitchen memorizing recipes. 1. Wash and slice the beef, then mix well with starch, refined salt, cooking wine, and dark soy sauce. 2. Wash and chop the bok choy and green garlic into sections. What next? Then I can make boiled beef? How to slice it, how much starch to add, what is dark soy sauce? Just like that, even if I memorize the entire process of the ingredients, it doesn't mean I'm now a chef. You must spend time in the kitchen, gradually mastering skills like knife handling and stirring. Once you get the basics, becoming a chef, then when you look at a recipe, you nearly don't need to memorize it, you can cook by feeling and make it more or less correctly. And Li Zheng is now someone who doesn't even know how to light the fire but is hard memorizing recipes, putting in 100 times the effort for 1% of the result, regardless of what fantastic recipes he's given. In the end, he's guaranteed to create a mess. Thinking of messes, he thought of the Cobalt God. This awesome person began to handle the pot and fry messes at 6. Isn't he precisely a god chef who first practiced in the kitchen and then studied recipes backward? Now, with his theory and practice combined, his culinary skills must be terrifyingly incomprehensible. He could probably blow up a public toilet with just a spoonful of chemicals. Conducting experiments with such a person is like watching a master chef at work, just observing, you're sure to learn something. Thinking of this, Li Zheng grew more and more eager. Just as Li Zheng was opening his phone to look up the Cobalt God, old Li suddenly called, saying he wanted to celebrate the chemistry provincial first place, and no matter what Li Zheng said, he insisted on taking his son out for a big meal. Li Zheng had no choice but to postpone getting close to the Cobalt God and walk to the Xiang Siking restaurant that old Li had chosen. Just from the name Xiang Siking, Li Zheng had a feeling it wasn't good news. It was supposed to be a celebration of my, Li Zheng's, brave achievement as second overall in the city. Yet the location was old Li's favorite Xiang cuisine restaurant. Was this a celebration for me or a feast for your cravings? Li Zheng's guess was soon confirmed. He entered the restaurant and as he sat down at the table, a plate of old Li's favorite double pepper fish head was already served. Followed by fried tofu, stinky tofu, beef noodles, and so forth. Not one was among Li Zheng's favorites. All of them were spicy, and surely the next day's toilet visit wouldn't be pleasant. Li Zheng numbly took his seat, and just had to pick the least painful dish, the beef noodles. Li Yi, however, chewed on the stinky tofu with a red face and gesticulated with his chopsticks, "Eat, there's plenty of fish head, why be polite with your dad?" Li Zheng had a word in mind. But he didn't say it. It wasn't easy for old Li to find the time, money, and appetite to enjoy his favorite dish. He endured it. Li Zheng then picked up some rice noodles and said, "If you're craving it, just say it, don't use my name to allocate funds for eating out from Ninger." "Funds? Am I short of money?" Li Yi suddenly chuckled, leaned in and asked, "Hey, you're 18 already, right?" "No," Li Zheng became upset, "you don't even know how old I am, what kind of father are you?" "Sorry, too busy, too busy." Li Yi glanced inadvertently at a waitress in a long chong sam, "Son, want to try some beer?" "No." "Hey? Starting with spirits right away." "Shut up. Then I'll have a bottle, don't tell your mom, okay?" Li Yi asked cautiously. "Whatever." Li Zheng waved his hand, "Since you're happy." Delighted, Li Yi immediately raised his arm and ordered a bottle of wine. This meal completely turned into a celebration for Li Yi. Once the beer was served and the cap opened, Li Yi had just taken a sip when his phone suddenly rang. It was a video call from Ninger. A woman's intuition is truly terrifying. Li Yi, flustered, quickly hid the beer bottle under the table. He wiped his face a few times before accepting the call. "Hi." Li Yi waved innocently at the camera. Ninger's voice came through the phone, stern yet playful, "Where are you munching? You seem so happy." "Hey, the kid placed in the competition, just celebrating." Li Yi promptly handed the phone to Li Zheng, "Share the good news with your mom." "Good evening." Li Zheng took the phone, greeting half-heartedly. In the camera, a chuckling old mother appeared, wearing glasses as thick as old Li's, her untidy short hair, and dressed in plain clothes, devoid of any jewelry from head to toe. Seeing her eldest son, she immediately teased, "Your hair looks like stirred noodles, academics not going well, hey." "Hat, your hair could use a cut too," Li Zheng replied with a smile. From the scene, it seemed Ninger was waiting at an airport, surrounded by some colleagues. However, seeing his long unseen mother, Li Zheng suddenly felt a pang of heartache. Even though Ninger's skincare was excellent, and her voice quite sweet, the mottled grey hair and wrinkles betrayed her age. Observing his mother's slightly tired look, Li Zheng couldn't help feeling a twinge in his nose and looked away, chiding, "You don't sleep well. You have the nerve to say." Ning got even more agitated, who again was banging doors and ordering courier. That was then, this is now." Li Zheng hastily bowed his head and slurped his noodles. "The Xiongnan beef noodles are pretty good." Chapter 127. Is this Zheng Zheng? Do you remember me? Soon, a man with thicker glasses and whiter hair moved closer to the camera, squinting as he examined Li Zheng, sighing as he spoke, "Oh my, you've grown up so much. I held you when you were little, back then, about this tall, still wearing split pants, haha." Hearing this, old Li, who was sneakily sipping from a bottle, furrowed his brows. "Who is it, old Deng?" In the frame, Ning smiled as she introduced, "Zheng Zheng, do you still remember Deng Dada?" Li Zheng looked at the fuzzy, balding old face. "I don't remember shit." But Li Zheng had high emotional intelligence and knew how to handle situations. He immediately flashed a radiant, youthful smile, "Of course, I remember, hello Deng Dada." "Aoyo." The bald man laughed, unable to close his mouth, "Look at our Zheng Zheng's presents, both handsome and smart." "Ning, you haven't been much of a homemaker, how did you raise such a wonderful son?" "Hehe." Ning couldn't contain her joy and covered her face, laughing, "Zheng Zheng just got second place in the city in the chem competitions, we're celebrating with his dad right now." "Chem competitions?" The bald man's expression brightened, and he looked at Ning astonished, "The chemistry Olympiad? The one organized by the Chemical Society?" "Yeah, which else could it be?" Ning continued to laugh uncontrollably. "That's impressive, it has real value, The bald man clapped his hands and turned to stare at Li Zheng. Did you make the provincial team? Have you enrolled in the Golden Autumn camp? Li Zheng was also stunned. This old guy really knows his stuff. I'm going to a training camp this weekend. The training is happening concurrently with the Golden Autumn camp this year. That's good, saves trouble. The bald man inquired further, how are you doing with experiments? Got any experience? If not, I'll find someone to give you a crash course. Thanks, Deng Dada, the school has arranged tutoring for me. The bald man nodded repeatedly, that's good, that's good. With such results, you must be from Rendafu, right? Rendafu is strong in competitions. Number 4 Middle School. Li Zheng remembered this old face now. Oh, Yu Xingzhou would be just like this when he's old. The bald man seemed to realize he had said something wrong and quickly changed the subject. Just let me know if you need anything, I'll arrange a lab for you. The bald man became more and more excited as he spoke, then suddenly he turned to Ning, so, once the plane lands, come to my place and pick up a gift for Zheng Zheng to bring back. Ah, no need, no need. Ning hastily declined. What are you saying? The bald man complained, in any regular family, if a child achieves this honor, they'd almost want to buy a car to celebrate, and here you are, empty-handed, is that appropriate? Ning was somewhat at a loss for words. Li Yi across from them was getting more irritated, hey, why is old Deng meddling in our family affairs? However, his voice was too weak, and nobody paid attention. In the screen, old Deng had already decided, enough with the refusals, I'm happy to see a chemistry prodigy, let me comfort you guys on behalf. Don't worry, it's not any material reward, but a very meaningful trophy that not many people in the country could have, only I possess this unique item. Could it be? Ning declined even more vigorously, no, 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 really, it's not appropriate, that's something you should keep and treasure. What have I got to treasure? Good things should be brought out, to give young people goals and motivation. Old Deng told Li Zheng, Zheng Zheng, just you wait, it's definitely something you'll like. Li Zheng perked up. He was never one to turn gifts away. From old Deng's description, it had to be something beneficial for studying. Li Zheng nodded vigorously, then thank you, Deng Dada. Old Li looked discomposed across the screen. Fuck, it's my son who won the award. Why are you, old Deng, so damn happy? As he struggled with these thoughts, Li Zheng suddenly turned the screen around. Li Yi, say hello to old Deng, Ning commanded. Li Yi's face changed immediately, showing a very insincere smile, ah. Brother Deng, long time no see. Aoyo, Li Yi, looking good, old Deng became even more insincere, your son has done well. Congratulations. You're too kind, brother Deng. After a few more pointless pleasantries, he finally hung up the phone, ending the terrifying meeting. Li Yi picked up the bottle and took 3 big swigs before heavily slamming it down. Li Zheng thought. This guy must be facing difficulties at work too. But he didn't dare to ask. After much deliberation, he finally said. How about I join you for a drink? Oh. Li Yi perked up immediately, just don't tell your mom. Li Zheng mockingly cursed, I'm already in deep. Why mention that? Afterwards. The father and son unknowingly downed 5 bottles. Of which, old Li drank 4.5, while Li Zheng merely sipped. He didn't find the drink appealing, it tasted bad and went straight to his head. It also affected his studies. But as a son, it was only natural to take care of his dad from a young age. On the way home, old Li was a bit tipsy, and his speech became unrestrained. Is being an academician so great? Isn't it just having a bit more experience? That Deng Dada, don't mind him, he's not capable, can't tutor you. The gifts are definitely subpar too. If you want something, just tell me. How can a Ning say such things as not caring for the family? Who is he to you? I'm just rambling, don't tell your mom about this. Li Zheng didn't say a word the whole time. He felt. This man, seemed very insecure. Felt like he wasn't worthy of Ninger. Look, old Li. Li Zheng stood at his own doorstep, frowning in confusion as he fished out his keys. You're so successful in your career and so handsome, what are you worrying about? Ah, really? Li Yi laughed heartily, you too, you're handsome as well. I know that, Li Zheng modestly smiled, opening the door, and as for someone like old Deng, who's overly familiar and needlessly worried, I just put up with him, merely coveting his collectibles. Ninger is just being polite due to work obligations. Upon hearing this, Li Yi visibly relaxed. Well, don't be too hard on him, he is an academician after all. Li Zheng stepped inside the house, struggled for a moment, and then finally managed to say, the time you guys spend with me is indeed limited, but at the same time, you've given me the whole world. I'm not sure what makes the best parents, but to me, freedom is the best company. Which proves, you guys are the best parents in the world. Li Yi was stunned, his body shaking thoroughly from a deep shiver. Goosebumps rose. He was completely at a loss for words. Is this really my naive son? Of course, the credit card is also important company. Li Zheng awkwardly scratched his nose. I'm going to take a shower. He then rushed into the bathroom and quickly slammed the door. Ah! Old Li took a deep breath and collapsed onto the sofa, clutching his chest. The son has really grown up. The way he talks. No wonder he could bring back such a wonderful wife. In the future, we definitely need to drink together more often. Chapter 128. Li Zheng, while brushing his teeth, followed his usual routine and headed to the door. His gaze was immediately drawn to a large red box on the shoe cabinet. The box was about 3 to 5 times the size of a shoe box. In the center, there were 2 golden characters written with a brush. Dragon Boat. Below it, in a slightly smaller golden bold font, China's first manned spaceflight commemoration. Li Zheng was stunned, and his toothbrush dropped to the floor. He hurriedly wiped his mouth, wiped his hands on his pants, and then nervously stepped forward and opened the large red box. Inside was an unassembled satellite model. Li Zheng excitedly picked up a few pieces to examine them. They were heavy, likely made of copper. Each piece was wrapped in clear plastic, not even unsealed yet. He then opened the accompanying illustrated book. October 15, 2003, at 9 o'clock sharp. The Dragon Boat 5-man spacecraft was launched from Haiquan Launch Center. This marked China as the 3rd country to send humans into space. This was truly a collector's grade gift. It appeared to be a collector's item from within the aerospace system. Li Zheng had to admit. The old man really had some tricks up his sleeve. If it weren't for him rushing to school, Li Zheng would have assembled it right then and there. He carefully stored the model away before going to check the post at the door. Deng Dada is an expert in chemical fuels, deeply involved in the Dragon 5 project. On the plane, he kept asking about your college entrance exam preferences, intending to pull you into the field of chemistry. Your mother, due to her position, didn't express her stance. There are some interests involved which you need not know yet. However, Deng Dada genuinely appreciates you, and this gift is indeed heavy but not expensive. This bit of favor, your mother can still manage. Don't feel pressured, the major choice is still up to you. P.S. Anything but medicine is negotiable. Unending. November 13, 2018, 2:15. Someone below was anxious. Has studying medicine offended you? However, I indeed also do not recommend it. Of course, I don't recommend chemistry even more. Just a special reminder for my son. Starting from now, you are being watched. Schools might approach you to sign a contract anytime. These recommended admissions and grade reductions are mostly exclusive. You must be responsible once you sign, and you must think it over carefully. Before signing, also be sure to let me and Ning review the contract. No golden words today, you no longer need them, son. Li Yi. November 13, 2018, 5:15. Li Zheng then replied to the post. Received the gift. Be sure to let Deng Dada put this idea to rest. Chem competitions were just a learning phase, my liking for chemistry is only moderate. I didn't think much when receiving the gift, that was my mistake, I will think thrice before acting from now on. Additionally, give old Li more pocket money, he's having a tough time. Enclosed are the recent bills and invoices. Li Zheng. November 13, 2018, 7:41. After finishing replying on the forum, Li Zheng tidied up, and just as he was about to leave, a sudden inspiration struck him. He reopened the big red box, neatly arranged all the parts and the souvenir photo, and took a picture. Although he really liked them himself, he was sure someone would like it even more. He imagined her, with all those cheap souvenir items from NASA hanging from her bag. Seeing an official model like this would probably make her explode on the spot. And it would be a high-level explosion. Sending it there you go. That'll make you drool. That morning, Lin Yujing actually arrived at class at 7:53. A whole 2 minutes earlier than usual. Breathless, with her hair blown out in a few tufts. It looked like she had really sprinted while riding her bike. Lin Yujing ran straight to Li Zheng's desk, slammed her palms down on it, and stared at him with glowing eyes, her breath hot and heavy. Humph! Ha, are you turning into a rocket? Li Zheng laughed. I'm in. Lin Yujing exclaimed, not caring about anything else. Together, let's do it together. I won't, just leave it in the box, Li Zheng replied nonchalantly, it would get dusty once assembled. Lin Yujing slammed her palms down on the desk again, continuing to fume. Hee hee. Li Zheng chuckled and turned his head to the side. Class president, manage this. Zhang Qinghua didn't respond. She just expressionlessly bowed her head and took out her phone. Clicked in the forum. My favorites life-saving videos positive energy quotes let's go. Her actions flowed smoothly like running water. So skilled that it broke your heart. Cough. Zhang Xiaoke suddenly coughed loudly, blinking as she said, you can also appeal to the vice class president. Appeal, Li Zheng urged. Well, this. Zhang Xiaoke frowned and looked at Lin Yujing, Jing, class is about to start, what are you making a fuss for now? Lin Yujing pointed frantically, speaking incoherently. It wasn't that she didn't want to speak, she was just too flustered to articulate. I get it. Zhang Xiaoke propped her chin, nodding seriously and then rounded her lips as she pointed at Li Zheng, it's all master's fault, satisfy our Jing quickly. Li Zheng's expression darkened, and he turned his head sharply towards Zhang Xiaoke, getting confident, are you, vice class president? Well. Zhang Xiaoke hurriedly started massaging Li Zheng's arm, master, look at her, given a bit. Li Zheng snorted softly, shaking his phone at Lin Yujing, I've decided, if you really beat me in the chem competitions, I'll hand it over to you, but if not, I'll have to assemble it myself. Lin Yujing widened her eyes, give. Yes. Li Zheng nodded, this model only belongs to those who are worthy of it. Humph. Lin Yujing fumed again, looking both eager and fiercely at Li Zheng, before stomping back to her seat, her entire demeanor radiating a don't mess with me vibe. Zhang Xiaoke couldn't help but sigh, is this, also a tactic to stimulate studying? Everything under master's control. Humph, a tireless teacher, that's me, Li Zheng flexed his fingers, of course, Ximen Chui Shuet, also long for a master yet who gives it his all. Speaking of master, what is it exactly that has her so impatient? Zhang Xiaoke asked curiously. This. Li Zheng picked up his phone, showing off the model's picture, I really understand women. Just this. Zhang Xiaoke stared for a long while, you really don't understand women. Li Zheng just smiled and put away his phone, you really don't understand Lin Yujing. As he finished speaking, an intensified version of electronic music blared from behind. Did Zhang Qinghua stay up too late last night? Why such a heavy dose this early in the morning? As the electronic music played, Yu Hong suddenly appeared at the door, waving at Li Zheng. Pack your bags, come with me. To the laboratory, for experiment training, Yu Hong emphasized, at G University's lab. Li Zheng immediately jumped up, I'm coming. Chapter 129. Yu Hong just gave him a WeChat business card before going off to have her own fun. Li Zheng asked if he could take a taxi at public expense, but Yu Hong told him to ask Principal Lu. Li Zheng then knocked on the principal's office door to ask if he could take a taxi, and the principal told him to ask Yu Hong. Li Zheng, who was about to turn 18, felt the hypocrisy of the world for the first time. The Lake Ying fishery gang could only fend for themselves now. Fortunately, the contact on WeChat was very reliable. It was a lady with the nickname Ximege, a master's student at G University. Her profile picture was a large, regular crystal with a snowflake-shaped crack at the center, filled with chemical aesthetics. The lady was also very enthusiastic and quickly approved the friend request, sending Li Zheng the address of Jiaojing University's School of Chemistry and Molecular Engineering, and asking him how long it would take for him to arrive. Li Zheng estimated it would take about 50 minutes, adding another 20 minutes just in case, and finally set their meeting for 9:15. Afterward, it was a journey by subway, from Line 2 to Line 4, all the way to G University East Gate. In between, Li Zheng took out his experimental textbook for a quick review, though it had limited effect, serving just as a memory reinforcement. The journey was smoother than the map software had estimated, and Li Zheng made it out of the subway before 9 a.m., standing right opposite the East Gate of G University. From a distance, the East Gate of G University wasn't large. It looked like an ordinary workplace, with only a small gate open at this time. Only a few people were passing through, and they needed to show their credentials to enter. Watching one after another entering and exiting with their backpacks, Li Zheng knew they were all big shots. If he had more time, he really would have liked to sneak a peek at the legendary Yiming Lake, but at that moment, he had to follow the road heading south. Unable to do otherwise, because Yiming Lake took up too much land and shared too much public space, G University's Chemistry College had already moved out of campus, located just about 200 meters ahead on the roadside. But just as Li Zheng was halfway there, suddenly his eyes bulged. He clenched his anus. Damn it, he hadn't stopped himself the night before, eating too much spicy food. Why was it only causing trouble now? He quickly looked around urgently. Thankfully, there was a public toilet at the corner. Li Zheng didn't think twice, pushing through the entrance and charged into the men's toilet. Though it was a small public toilet, it had 2 stalls. The outer one had its door wide open. Li Zheng didn't have time to think, dashed in, closed the door, hung up his backpack, pulled down his pants, and there was a series of loud plops. Afterward, he took a long sigh of relief. He was saved. What remained was to take it slow. There was no need to rush anymore. But just as he slowed down, the next stall started making plop sounds like they were competing. It seemed as contagious as yawning. As the neighbor got into it, he also started going intensely as if stirring the seas and rivers. The two of them took turns, pushing each other on, and in just 2 minutes, had finished what usually took 10 minutes. Li Zheng rarely felt so unobstructed and thought that the hero next door must feel the same, which unavoidably brought some cheeky thoughts. Unfortunately, now everyone lived in flats with private bathrooms, and he probably could never enjoy such satisfaction again. His cheeky thoughts dissipated, and he began to unzip his backpack to get some tissue. Then his eyes bulged again. He remembered having almost a full pack. How could there only be 1 piece left? Thinking of the particular circumstances of today's sprinkling stars, handling this would be quite difficult. There was no other way. He'd have to fold it several times. Better than nothing. Just as Li Zheng was figuring out how to manage with that single piece of paper, a somewhat immature voice from puberty came from next door. Hey there! Li Zheng was taken aback. Was it the hero next door? Still a young hero? Li Zheng immediately responded. The young hero hesitated for a moment, then asked awkwardly, brother, do you have any extra paper? Li Zheng suddenly felt panicked, glanced at the small piece of tissue in his palm that was barely bigger than his hand, and stiffly replied, I also have just 1 piece. Ah! The young hero sighed deeply, just walking along, and suddenly it rushed out. You too, right? Li Zheng empathized deeply and responded with a sigh, yes, these things always catch us off guard. Just like love, sighed the voice from next door. Nice, literary flair. Thanks a lot, you, go ahead and wipe, don't mind me. Looking at the only piece of paper in his hand, Li Zheng said awkwardly, how about I hurry up and finish, then go out and buy some paper for you. Don't trouble yourself too much. The young hero gritted his teeth, making a crunching sound, forget about me, I'll figure something out. Li Zheng shivered all over. It's not worth it, hero. Thinking that everyone had come together by a twist of fate, Li Zheng also gritted his teeth, crunching similarly. How about I tear half for you, and we both conserve a bit? No need, you won't have enough either. Refused hero. No worries, my math is good, I can calculate the folding pattern with the highest utilization rate. Saying this, Li Zheng took out a ruler from his backpack, folded the paper towel around it, and prepared to cut. Hey, my math isn't bad either. Hero seemed ignited with interest from next door, bro, quickly give me the dimensions of the paper, I'll help you calculate it. Oh? Interesting. Li Zheng thought, not in a hurry to cut, and started measuring, 18x18 centimeters, the original folding method, 3x4, 12 squares. Hiro then pondered, if these 12 squares are fully utilized, one could wipe 6 times each, which is barely enough. Yes, but folding in half reduces the number of uses, Li Zhang frowned, and we also need to consider hands and bottoms, can't get them dirty. Now that we've mentioned it, I seem to remember something about this folding problem. Hiro suddenly raised his voice, I remembered. The solar panels on artificial satellites, because they need to fold and unfold, there seems to be an algorithm for that, let me check. Li Zhang was more inclined towards the practical approach on this issue, with repeated attempts with the paper in hand. Soon, Hiro tapped on the partition, if the length of the paper is L, and the thickness is T, then L equals pi T/6 times 2 raised to the power of n plus 4, multiplied by 2 raised to the power of n minus 1, this n is the maximum number of times the paper can be folded, we can roughly take a log to figure it out. Li Zhang murmured, smart, but this seems like just discussing how many times the paper can be folded. We still need to discuss the usable surface area each time, and how to avoid getting our hands dirty. Right, these plans aren't reliable, has no one researched such an important mathematical problem? I do have a workaround here. Li Zhang swallowed and said, put your finger directly through the middle of the paper, then with your fingers, after you're done, wrap around once, snap, clean the fingers, and throw it away, what do you think? This also works, but the losses are quite big, Hiro responded, then suddenly had another idea, brother, we could do this, wipe on the edges, then fold the used part inside, switch to another edge, and continue wiping, rolling the paper inward bit by bit until it turns into a ball. Brilliant! Li Zhang praised, then also got inspired, I think we can improve it further, set an angle alpha. Definitely, but we can optimize further, after calculating alpha, then take the diagonal. Very interesting, but shouldn't we leave at least a few square centimeters of space for our fingers? Oh dear, forgot to consider that, after all, toilet paper usage rate and fingertip feces usage rate are inversely proportional. 15 minutes later. Right, fold it like that, and we can start. Hiro said, this way, each of us can use it 7 times, and avoid getting dirty. Okay, I'll draw the inscribed circle and angles. Li Zhang was about to grab a pen, but then felt something was off, knocked on the partition, brother, since it's all this complicated, wouldn't it be better if I just fold this piece of paper into 16 small squares by folding it twice each way? Ah! Hiro smacked his forehead, right, just use 1 square each time and throw it away, that works, brother. Shall I cut it then? Please. Hiro laughed, once we start discussing math, we get sucked in, my bad, brother. Li Zhang also laughed, me too, look, I even pulled out my compass. Now that you mention it, the compass seems to have its uses too. Let's stop here, brother. Because it took too long. By the time both of them used it, it had all dried up. But that didn't dampen their academic enthusiasm. They vigorously wiped as they exchanged greetings. Hiro asked earnestly, speaking of which, brother, you are quite pungent. Ah, had too much stinky tofu last night, sorry. Fuck, no wonder, Hiro went on to ask, brother, you're from G University, right? So strong. I'm just in high school, just passing by. What a coincidence, I'm also in high school. Suddenly, Hiro remembered something, it's Tuesday today, don't you guys have classes? We do, I'm here for something. What a coincidence, I am here for something too. Hiro's voice gradually trembled, you wouldn't happen to be going to G University's chemistry college, would you? Yes, I am. Li Zhang exclaimed, you aren't, also in chem competitions? Yes. Hiro became completely excited, did you contact Professor Ximege? Yes, I did. You wouldn't happen to be Li Zhang? Hiro impatiently said. Fuck. Li Zhang was shocked, pounding on the door, Shi Yang. Is that even possible? Hiro was overjoyed, I've wanted to meet you for ages. Same here. Li Zhang was vigorously wiping, enough talk, hurry up and wipe. Li Zhang on this side hackled, used up 8 small pieces of paper, and retreated wholly, emotionally preparing himself as he slowly pushed open the single cubicle door. The door hadn't even opened yet when the mournful voice of a man came from outside. "Guys, please, could you hurry it up a bit?" Li Zheng hurriedly opened the door, keeping his head down, and dashed out swiftly. He only felt a whoosh of air by his ear as the man sprinted into the cubicle. The door slammed with a bang, and almost simultaneously, a liberating sound came from inside. "Hero from next door side, you're certainly quick. Quick your ass." The man exploded with expletives, gnashing his teeth. The belt buckle got stuck. The voice was not just angry but also filled with endless resignation and humiliation. Li Zheng didn't dare to think more, quickly grabbed his backpack, and washed his hands fast. Hero also rushed out with his pants up, washing vigorously next to Li Zheng. "Let's bolt, fast." "Yes, better not wait for him to come out." Chapter 130. Despite having chatted eagerly in the restroom, upon seeing each other in person, they both became shy again. It was even more awkward than meeting a friend from the internet. Shi Yang looked pretty much how Li Zheng had imagined. Standing at 175 meters, moderately overweight, with buzzed hair and glasses, he truly was a plus-sized version of a model student. The enhanced aspect was mainly his face, which was bigger, and even when he kept a straight face, he seemed to smile not a cunning kind of smile, but one that suggested he was always up to no good. Especially those eyes, whether naturally or artificially developed, were always gleeful, slightly possessing a demonic nature. To sum up, he was shy, mischievously playful, subtle, but with a spirit about him. On the other hand, Li Zheng, as seen through Shi Yang's eyes, was far from what he had envisioned. He neither wore glasses nor was he unattractive, and he was also good at making conversation. Shi Yang cursed inwardly. "This isn't fair. Damn this unjust world. Li Zheng, this guy, definitely has a girlfriend. It's so unfair." The two walked back to the main street in silence. All along the way, Shi Yang's mind was full of thoughts about women. He just wanted to find out if Li Zheng had a girlfriend, what it felt like to have one, and if a girl's tongue was indeed cool. Add latest chapters at freeobnovlo only. But facing such shameful questions on a first meeting, he felt uneasy to ask directly. As for Li Zheng, his mind was filled with thoughts of bombs, but considering Shi Yang was known as the Cobalt God, an ultimate scholar, he likely had chemical formulas running through his head. Li Zheng thought it might not be nice to ask such indecent questions on their first meeting. After all, they had been giving each other cheers of all hail online, speaking freely in the public restroom. But without the internet and the stall dividing them, they felt more distant than ever. As they rounded a corner, Li Zheng finally couldn't help himself. He chose a hypocritical topic to break the ice, and said tentatively, "Brother Shi, that difficult problem you posted was really something. I was so confused I couldn't understand it." "Not at all," Shi Yang said with a goofy smile and scratching his face, becoming even shyer. "I just happened to read a paper and had some thoughts. Didn't I post it in the group? What part don't you understand?" "Mainly. I'll think about it some more." Li Zheng regretted bringing up the topic. At that moment, Shi Yang steeled himself and asked while persistently staring at the ground, "Brother Li, looking at you. I guess you probably have a girlfriend, right?" "How could I?" As Li Zheng saw Shi Yang's defensive look, his expression twitched. "Are you looking down on me or what?" "Ah? No, not at all." Shi Yang was utterly baffled. "You're not looking down on me." Li Zheng pondered deeply. "When I went to the chem competitions, people treated me just like you do, not willing to interact with me. Isn't that them looking down on me?" "Definitely not, buddy." Shi Yang giggled. "It's just that your style stands out too much. You seem on a different level, not that approachable." "Oh!" Li Zheng exclaimed, "So I misunderstood everyone." "You misunderstood, indeed." Shi Yang raised his eyebrows and asked, "So, you really don't have a girlfriend? That's for after college. What are you thinking about?" Li Zheng felt somewhat aggrieved. "Then, I'm relieved." Shi Yang finally relaxed and reached out his right hand with a laugh. "Fellow enthusiast, fellow enthusiast." Li Zheng also reached out his right hand with a smile. But just as their hands were about to touch, they both withdrew slightly and looked around. This time, it wasn't out of shyness. Rather, Li Zheng always felt like the other person hadn't washed thoroughly. Seeing that Cobalt God was quite easy to talk to, Li Zheng also asked, "Brother Shi, there's something I've been holding in for a long time, about the exploding poop thing, is it true? Man! Shi Yang clapped his hands together, suddenly animated, and his smile also became enigmatic. You should have said earlier. I was starting to think you were all serious and stuff. Li Zhang just urged, come on, hurry up, I can't wait. Hey, that actually got twisted. Shi Yang licked his lips, rolled up his sleeves, and began to gesture. That was back in my 6th grade of elementary school. Through Shi Yang's explanation, Li Zhang finally learned the whole story. Even better than the internet version. Turns out, Shi Yang's dad, Father Shi, was a middle school chemistry teacher. Shi Yang, when in elementary school, would finish school quite early, so he'd go hang out at his dad's school every day after class. Whenever Shi Yang arrived, Father Shi would take him to the chemistry lab, give him some safe chemical toys to play with, and then sit beside him grading papers or working on teaching plans and whatnot. Occasionally, when he finished work ahead of schedule, he would do a visually striking experiment to show Shi Yang. And so Shi Yang became fascinated and would pester his dad to do experiments every day. On the other hand, he pestered his mom to buy a large amount of experimental equipment and materials. Not only experimenting at school but also at home, doing things like creating fire out of thin air with potassium permanganate and glycerin, or accidentally making too much chlorine gas and almost poisoning himself when a bottle cap exploded. He had done them all. Every time he caused a disaster of that level, Father Shi would undoubtedly give him a good thrashing, then throw out all the chemistry stuff. But every time after cooling off for about half a month, Mother Shi couldn't stand her son's begging and would set him up with a new set again. Then another accident, another thrashing, and the cycle repeated. When a naughty kid gets his hands on chemistry, it's bound to be a disaster. Honestly, it's been no small feat for this family to have survived to this day. By the time Shi Yang's second semester of 6th grade came around, his experiments were becoming quite methodical. Maybe because he had gone through all sorts of mishaps, he knew very well how to avoid dangers. He did his experiments so flawlessly that even Father Shi couldn't point out any mistakes, and hence started to relax his supervision. It was precisely because of this that Shi Yang saw his opportunity. In the past, when he was with his dad in the chemistry lab, his dad had to keep an eye on him, afraid that he would up to no good. But that day, Father Shi finished grading homework early and noticed that Shi Yang had become quite skilled, so he laid his head down on the desk and dozed off for a while. It was during this while that Shi Yang stole a fist-sized sodium block and stuffed it into his pocket. Sodium is a rather interesting metal with very active chemical properties that react violently with water. Under Father Shi's supervision, Shi Yang had done an experiment where he dropped a small piece of sodium into phenolphthalein water. The sodium would first float on the surface, then melt into a shiny little ball that moved around, hissing, turning the solution red. In short, it was the process of sodium reacting with water, forming sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. This simple experiment should have ended there. But the trouble was his dad talked too much. During the experiment, you can only use a very, very small piece of sodium, use a bit more and it would explode, he said. That one sentence stirred something in Shi Yang. Exploding in water without any fuel? Just metal? Shi Yang, in the 6th grade, just didn't believe it. Finally, on that day, he had managed to get his hands on such a big chunk of sodium, tucked into his pocket. He planned to find a chance one day, throw it into a pond or a small lake, and see if it would really explode. Chapter 131. So, he carried the sodium block and ran out of the lab into the small lavatory by the playground. Back then, these lavatories were still the old-fashioned large communal type, with all the pits connected underneath. While squatting, Shi Yang looked down and had some thoughts about it, but he wasn't foolish enough to throw it in while he was still squatting there. Just as he was pondering this, a few high school boys who had just finished their PE class came in. Seeing a primary student taking his squat seriously, they started laughing right away, even bending down to observe him, mocking him for not even having any pubic hair and being smaller than a small section of their little fingers. Now Shi Yang was really getting anxious. But the other guys were strong, and he didn't dare do anything. All he knew was, knowledge is power. The high schoolers, seeing the kid wouldn't cry or fuss or react to their teasing, mocked him a few times and then squatted down to relieve themselves. Shi Yang, naturally, was the first one to pull up his pants and finish. Then, with a stern face, he pulled out the bag containing the sodium block. Remember, my name is Shi Yang. After that, he quickly dumped the sodium block into the pit and turned to run. Next. Pong! The whole pit exploded. From every open slot, it burst forth. That day, the people in the lavatory witnessed what is called a skyrocketing poop cannon. The specific visuals can be compared to a nuclear bomb's mushroom cloud. Not only were the boys blasted so hard they were rolling in their excrements, literally. The neighboring ladies' room suffered as well. It is said that the girls came out covering their faces with their hands, crying, completely unrecognizable. Meanwhile, a true man never looks back at an explosion. Shi Yang had already run back to the lab. Practice reveals the truth. It turns out metals really can explode in water. Actually, if he hadn't said my name is Shi Yang, he might have gotten away with it, but the only teacher in the whole school named Shi was a chemistry teacher. Because of this incident, Father Shi almost lost his job. That restroom was completely ruined, only describable as completely barren and a mess. The good news is, there were no casualties, and most of the damage was confined underneath, with the rest being just residual effects. The school thus strengthened control over the chemistry labs and chemical supplies, a classic case of an incident forcing an upgrade in management. All in all, the fact that Shi Yang is still alive today is truly not easy. At the entrance of G University's chemistry college, Shi Yang shook his head and sighed, chemistry experiments, kids really shouldn't mess with them. Li Zheng also felt a lingering fear, now that you mention it, safety is indeed paramount. Don't panic. The substances and amounts we can access in competitions are very safe, as long as you don't eat them, there won't be any problems, Shi Yang chuckled, suddenly recalling more incidents. Speaking of eating, in middle school, I once wanted to verify the composition of gastric acid. Enough, brother Shi, enough. As they were talking, a big sister came out from the yard, waving to them from afar. Is that Shi Yang and Li Zheng? The two hurried over and introduced themselves. The big sister had her hair in a ponytail, wore round glasses, and was dressed in a lab coat, also exuding the aura of a good student. Even though she was a graduate student, she shared a kind of shyness with Li and Shi, standing face to face without the boldness she had on chat apps. As she approached, she stretched out her right hand somewhat shyly, barely daring to look at them, and began to stutter, Shen Yun, second year of graduate studies, I'm not very adept, please don't laugh at me. Li Zheng and Shi Yang also instinctively extended their right hands. But they hesitated at the same time. They were afraid their hands weren't very clean. Especially Shi Yang, who hardly ever spoke to girls, suddenly meeting a calm big sister made him even more uneasy, and thinking about his not-so-clean hands, he withdrew his hand, scratching his head with a silly smile, let's improve together, improve together. He didn't realize that big sister's mention of not very adept was just modesty. And he certainly didn't know that saying let's improve together to a second-year graduate student from G University's Chemistry Institute was an incredibly presumptuous remark. Ah, is that so? The graduate student big sister kept her hand suspended in mid-air, also feeling a bit awkward. Li Zheng, confident that his hand hadn't touched anything, hesitated for a moment, but finally mustered up courage and shook her hand. I'm really new to experimental work, I appreciate senior sister Shen's guidance. Ah, not at all, not at all, Shen Yun clasped Li Zheng's hand, nodding continuously, quite politely. Shi Yang stared at their clasped hands. And he was already cursing inside. Your mom, have you no shame? Really? Wow! Good one, Li Zheng, and here I thought of you as a brother, sharing all those past stories. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Just look at you. You're lying. You definitely have a girlfriend. Yet, this was just the beginning. As Shen Yun led Li Zheng and Shi Yang inside, she asked, you just called me senior sister, does that mean you guys have already been admitted by recommendation? No, not yet, Li Zheng shook his head repeatedly, then should I call you Shen? Sister. Don't. Shen Yun quickly lowered her head to cover her face, just senior sister is fine, senior sister, is very happy to welcome you to apply to the Chemistry Institute, hehe. Speaking of applying to the institute, Li Zheng inevitably had some thoughts, and it was necessary to do some early reconnaissance for future leisure assurances. Li Zheng then laughed and said, judging from the ratio of this time's awards, there must be very few girls in the Chemistry Institute, right? Senior sister, you are so pretty, do the senior brothers really let you do experiments? Oh my gosh! Shen Yun blushed and giggled, it's not that exaggerated, there are still a few in a class. But for someone as outstanding as senior sister, it must be hard to find one in a whole department, right? Oh my, no no no. No no no. The two chatted back and forth like this, and within a few phrases, Shen Yun's face was blossoming like a peach blossom. Shi Yang followed from a distance, feeling utterly lonely and deserted. Li Zheng, you shameless jerk! You still say you're not a scumbag? You still claim you don't have a girlfriend? I thought of you as a brother because I thought we were both the kind who only dared to talk to girls in the QQ group. The kind whose heart races just by shouting all hail. But you, how can you also manage to speak up in reality? You're really incredible. Senior sister, you too. It probably takes many years for the Chemistry Institute to have a beauty like you. How did Li Zheng manage to sweep you off your feet so quickly? Could it be that all the senior brothers are like me, Shi Yang, only daring to be bold in the QQ group? Along the way, amidst laughter, Li Zheng found out that he and Shi Yang were both recommended by two bigwigs of the Chemistry Institute, but somehow, the final guidance task fell strangely on the head of Shen Yun, who straightforwardly invited both of them to do an experiment together. As a competition mentor, Shen Yun certainly had her capabilities, having been a national champion in the chem competitions and was recommended all the way from undergraduate to postgraduate. However, from what she said, she wasn't quite qualified for recommendation initially. It was only because this major severely lacked women. If this trend continued, the lab would be filled with males, men around men, which really isn't stimulating. Now, adding a girl, even if she does nothing, is essentially like giving all the males an efficiency buff. Overall it was still a gain. Moreover, Shen Yun did have the skills, she just slightly lacked in terms of recommendation qualifications. Choosing her to tutor was probably also aimed at women's meticulousness and patience. If it were a male master's student, they might end up like Li Yi, who always says, "How can you not know such simple things?" and ends up discouraging people. Soon, the trio entered the laboratory building and arrived at the teaching laboratory on the first floor. The lab consisted of 8 large tables, topped with beakers, scales, experiment kits, and other common instruments. On one table, more items were placed, including a row of bottles clearly containing chemicals. However, the focus of Li Zheng and Shi Yang wasn't here. Instead, they both approached the lab bench and turned on the tap to vigorously wash their hands. After all, they had hurried off too quickly earlier to avoid that guy struggling with his belt. While washing, they also chatted quietly. Shi Yang murmured, "Do you think that guy who didn't have time to pull up his pants has come out yet?" "He must have come out by now," Li Zheng reasoned, "but, once he stands up, wouldn't it run down his pants?" The expression on Shi Yang's face turned intriguing. "You mean, it would drop all along the way, hey? Brother Shi, why are you so excited?" "Hee hee." Shi Yang gave a sly smile and shook his head quickly. "Enough of that, let's get to the experiments." Chapter 132. I'll just assume you two made it through the training camp and into the provincial team, ha. Then, the final competition for your year will be held at Liudong University. The exam environment should be similar to this, an ordinary undergraduate teaching laboratory. During the experiment, there will be 2 invigilating teachers constantly recording to check if your procedures are compliant. Finally, your experiment results will be combined with a comprehensive score. As Shen Yun spoke, she pushed a sheet of paper with an experimental question to the 2 of them, while she herself took out goggles and gloves. "You two needn't worry, since your theory is so outstanding, the experimental aspect will also improve quickly. The experimental question will give you the principles and general steps, after that, it's up to you to perform. Most points are lost due to assumptions, overlooking some specific reactions in the experiment, starting the next step without sufficient preparation, leading to mistakes in the reaction, and in serious cases, it could all fall through at the last minute. Because there's limited time during the exam, if you encounter a catastrophic failure midway, then it's all over. The rest is just practice, practice makes perfect. Make all the mistakes, and you will learn. Now, I'll first demonstrate a simple experiment for you to get a feel." Once Shen Yun was fully geared up, she pointed to the bottles on the table. "The synthesis of coumarin 3-carboxylic acid, do you know about it?" "Hee hee," Shi Yang couldn't contain his glee upon hearing this. "It's starting now. It's my time, Shi Yang. I've been around for so long, yet never had a continuous conversation with a girl for more than 3 sentences. Isn't it just because the girls are too shallow, not understanding chemistry? Just a little chat and they run away. Now, the opportunity has come. A chemistry big sister in her second year of postgraduate studies. Can you, Li Zheng, even catch her interest? In chemistry, once you enter the university realm, without a doubt, experiments are held in the highest regard. It's time for me to show you what real strength is. Knowledge is power. Girls, respect the strong. In this laboratory, I, Shi Yang, am the only king. The more Shi Yang thought about it, the more excited he became. But he still didn't dare to look at Shen Yun. He just rubbed his hands while staring at the containers like a fat fly perched on a cake, his mind full of how to act suavely. This Kumaran, wasn't it last year's competition question? Ah, you noticed. Shen Yun chuckled, I don't know the difficulty of this year's competition either, so I had to choose a question from last year. But don't underestimate this experiment, it's still quite challenging, definitely undergraduate level. Undergraduate beginner level, Shi Yang, fixated on the dark brown bottle, took the opportunity to show an expert's smile with a flick of his wrist. In the national finals, it was just of beginner difficulty. Quite confident, aren't we, Mr. Shi? Shen Yun asked, while checking the dropper, have you done it before? No, after looking at the question last year, I found it too simple, so there was no need to do it, Shi Yang said with pursed lips and a bashful wave of his hand. How about it, big sister? How's my act? But then Shen Yun's hand shook, almost dropping the dropper. Whoa, that was almost a deduction. Shi Yang was quick to react, immediately raising his eyebrows with a laugh. Damaging equipment, 3 points apiece, there goes your full score. Shen Yun clenched her teeth. Even though she's famously easygoing, she was starting to get annoyed with this guy. Shi Yang, in his quest to impress the big sister of chemistry, only grew more boastful. As for experiments, sure, ICO is a bit tricky, but with this national finals question, as long as there aren't any equipment malfunctions, I almost always score full marks. Shen Yun pursed her lips. Arms crossed, she was unhappy. Wasn't I supposed to be tutoring you guys? If you're so great, what are you doing here, hey? Li Zheng was not like Shi Yang, he was very adept at reading the room. Seeing that teacher Shen was upset, he quickly tried to defuse the situation. Brother Shi, we're here to learn. Let's watch first, then talk. Let's not disturb our senior. Shen Yun then felt somewhat better, glad that this junior got it. But then she saw Shi Yang lift his brows with a smile, which, combined with his large face and crescent-shaped eyes, looked somewhat lecherous when he grinned. Hey, for such a simple experiment, do we really need someone to guide us? How about we tackle something more challenging? Shen Yun clenched her teeth again. You haven't even won the national first place yet. And you're already looking down on me? Well then. Shen Yun, holding back her anger, took off her goggles and gloves. Shi Yang, why don't you give us a demonstration? This. Shi Yang seemed troubled and frowned, it's too easy, doesn't show any skill. Shen Yun couldn't stand his smug look and pinched the edge of the desk in frustration. I don't find it easy at all. Is that so? Seeing her reaction, Shi Yang immediately took the gloves and goggles. Shall I show you then? In fact, he nearly blurted out, is this all a second-year student from G University amounts to? But he held it back. Although he really wanted to show off his chemistry prowess, he could feel that stepping on someone like this wasn't nice. In the midst of a strange atmosphere, Shi Yang got geared up and stepped forward. Once he started the experiment, the flesh on his face trembled with excitement. Watch carefully, if I lose half a point, I lose. Please, Shen Yun stood opposite him, staring him down. I don't believe it. I'll fine you. Seeing that he couldn't stop it, Li Zheng also came over to Shen Yun's side and said in a very low voice. Senior sister, my brother, he's not very articulate. I believe he didn't mean to offend, it's just that he gets carried away and acts a bit extravagant in the lab. It's okay, Shen Yun took a long breath and raised her arm. Looking at Li Zheng again, she found him more and more appealing. Despite both being juniors, this one, though not so good looking, was quite well behaved. She then asked him with a pleasant demeanor, I can't be bothered with him. How's your foundation in experiments? I have no foundation. I only know that you don't blow out an alcohol lamp, you cover it, Li Zheng admitted sheepishly, nodding. although I'm second in theory, I don't feel confident about making the provincial team. It all depends on your guidance, senior sister. Second in the Jiajing preliminary contest, you're already much better than I was, Shen Yun encouraged with a fist pump, go for it, aim for direct admission. As usual, Li Zheng modestly declined, I don't dare to think too far ahead, I'm truly striving to make the provincial team. Take it easy. I'll coach you for 3 days properly, that should be enough for the training camp. 3 days. Li Zheng was thrilled, but then he tactfully demurred, wouldn't that be too disruptive to your studies, senior sister? Shen Yun blinked rapidly a few times, then said with a mischievous smile, don't worry, teaching you guys is definitely less stressful than overtime in the lab. I won't lose out. I'm an assistant during the training camp and the Golden Autumn camp too. I'll have plenty of time to slack off. Li Zheng inquired further, speaking of overtime in the lab, it must be exhausting, right? Oh my, every night I'm busy until after 10, and the professor still complains we leave early. Let me tell you a true story. Shen Yun began her animated narration with excitement, because our supervisor was so demanding. One of the senior students couldn't take it and wrote a complaint to the dean, saying he was squeezing us dry, making us work late into the night. When the dean found out, he got angry and called our supervisor, saying roughly. Shen Yun put on a dignified tone, pretending to be the dean, scolding, oh dear, what's going on, old Yang, how can you treat students like this, they must go home earlier, before 11 o'clock. Then she stepped forward, imitating her supervisor's compliant response, no, Dean. I always let them go by 10 o'clock. Having said this, Shen Yun looked expectantly at Li Zheng. Chapter 133. So, where was the punchline? Ah, not funny. Shen Yun scratched her head with a goofy smile, this one, probably only people from the Chemical Institute would get. No, it's pretty funny, if I knew the dean and advisor's personalities, I would have definitely burst out laughing. Exactly, the dean is the real workaholic fiend, and the senior brother is like the pot calling the kettle black. Haha. I see, Li Zheng forced a laugh, then continued, the joke itself is a bit hard to get, but it really is interesting when you tell it, senior. You would definitely be more attractive than the current idols if you went into acting. Ah, my goodness. Shen Yun's face turned red again, it's just, art comes from life, right? On the other side, Shi Yang was pinching his pipette as if trying to squeeze blood from it. Listening to their whispers that were like the buzzing of mosquitoes. It just didn't seem right. Wasn't this place supposed to value chemistry skills above all? Chemistry big sister, don't be mesmerized by this guy who looks like a total player. Look over here, look over here. However, Shen Yun and Li Zheng were chatting more and more enthusiastically, unable to contain themselves from performing more jokes from the Chemical Institute, occasionally covering their faces to giggle. Shi Yang could no longer bear it and spoke in a deep voice, shall I start now? On hearing this, Shen Yun's previously beaming face instantly frosted over. Sure, please do. Shi Yang clenched his teeth. You're really pulling a 180? Not cool, big sister. I will save you with my chemistry skills. Shi Yang, determined, didn't even look at the experimental principles and steps, he immediately began his performance. The preparation and titration of coumarin 3-carboxylic acid, Shi Yang. As he said this, he opened a dark bottle, salicylaldehyde, dipped the pipette in for a quick draw, then grabbed a graduated cylinder and dropped the solution in, repeating the action swiftly twice before screwing the bottle closed, all without looking at the cylinder's scale. Wait, I'm going to have to deduct points. Shen Yun raised a hand and smirked coldly, check the paper. Take 2 milliliters of salicylaldehyde, do you even know how much you took? 2 milliliters. Shi Yang said without looking away, already opening the second reagent bottle, diethyl oxalate. Shen Yun's nose twitched, itching to check it right away and take him down a peg. But as a second-year graduate big sister, it would just seem petty to argue over every detail. Li Zheng, although very good at reading people, wasn't skilled enough to see this layer of interaction, but driven by curiosity, he walked around to the lab bench, leaned on the table, and started staring at the scale. 2 ml, not a fraction off. There was once a legend about a candy seller known as 1 grab accurate who, no matter the weight requested, would grab a random amount that always turned out to be exact. Now, he was witnessing the cobalt gods 1 drop accurate. At that moment, he turned his head to look at the man drawing the reagent. It was as if the man was surrounded by an invisible aura of chemical molecules. This man, he was no longer Shi Yang. He was the Cobalt God. At the same time, academic fortune detected. Shi Yang, 27. Learning limit, 26. Learning in process. Luck plus 0.1. Plus 0.1. Li Zheng's eyes widened. No closing them now, he wouldn't close his eyes until he had absorbed all the luck. Now, the only reference for academic fortune was Li Zheng himself. It was 4. And this jerk Shi Yang had nearly 7 times his own luck. All these experimental talents, truly the luck needed for this era. Mine, all mine. Of course, talk of stealing luck was nothing more than a jest. For scholars, this was about learning, gathering wisdom, and improving together. Since the system had clarified that it was about learning, the luck of the Cobalt God would undoubtedly not be diminished because of it. All things considered, the nation's luck had seemingly increased out of thin air, an auspicious development indeed. Li Zheng watched Shi Yang intently, then returned to Shen Yun's side. Exactly 2 milliliters, not a drop more or less. Li Zheng whispered softly. Shen Yun spoke resentfully, that is not very difficult, a senior brother from 3 years ago, could also do it. Once Shi Yang began the experiment, it was as if he was completely oblivious to the conversation on the other side, and in the blink of an eye, he poured 2.4 ml of diethyl oxalate and 10 ml of anhydrous ethanol into a 50 ml round-bottom flask, one after the other. In the process, there were naturally many little techniques and maneuvers. For instance, when adding the anhydrous ethanol, the Cobalt God noticeably slowed down the pouring speed while rapidly spinning the flask, pouring in a swirling motion. Clearly, this was intentional on the part of the Cobalt God. But Li Zheng couldn't see through it. He had no choice but to lean in close to the elder sister figure and ask, why? Before he could voice his confusion, Shen Yun answered, when dropping in the reagent earlier, it's inevitable that some gets on the inner walls of the flask, he's doing this to wash down any other reactants from the inner walls using the anhydrous ethanol. Li Zheng uttered a grunt of realization as he finally understood. Such minute details would never be mentioned in the experiment instructions. Only those who had conducted numerous experiments would naturally develop such habitual techniques. The experiment had barely started, and there were surely a plethora of such little tricks to be revealed. Cobalt God, show off your academic fortune to the fullest. Once the Cobalt God had prepared the solution, he placed the flask on the oil bath rack, securing it before using a high-precision plastic syringe to draw some piperidine, carefully inserting the needle into the flask, and very cautiously injecting it, causing the solution to turn yellow. Humph! Shen Yun suddenly chuckled, but then quickly quieted herself. What had she noticed? Li Zheng had no idea. He even doubted he would understand even if he asked. Well then, there would be no point in asking. Pretending to be knowledgeable and humming along seemed like the better option. Humph! The Cobalt God, however, paid no attention to the pair, and proceeded to pick up another vial of glacial acetic acid, holding it motionless above the flask, centered perfectly for a long while before allowing it to drop in. Unlike his previous carefree actions, these drops were exceedingly cautious, presumably also to avoid getting any on the inner walls of the flask. Chemical experiments call for strict measures of reagents, as even a single drop more or less can affect the rate and amount of reaction. In severe cases, it could even spark unexpected and strange reactions, leading to a failed experiment. Take this synthesis question of coumarin, for example, the final yield is worth a hefty 40 points. The theoretical yield for this reaction is 2.53 grams. But that's just theory, the yield without any molecular loss. In a college laboratory environment, with human manual operation, the yield's absolute upper limit is about 90% of the theoretical amount. Therefore, when scoring, a final yield above 80% would be perfect, scoring 40 points. 70% would earn 35 points. 60% would earn 30 points. And so on. Watching the skilled Cobalt God place the condenser tube, Shen Yun finally took on a serious tone. For an undergraduate standard, reaching a 70% yield would be considered excellent. Which is 1.78 grams. Li Zheng mumbled, but for full marks in the competition, the requirement is above 80%, which is 2 grams. Virtually impossible, Shen Yun confidently shook her head. It's not that it's theoretically impossible, just that someone doing it for the first time can't possibly achieve that. Hitting 70% is already quite outstanding. However, if you had a week to repeat the experiment dozens of times, making continuous minute adjustments to the dose, reaction time, and temperature in pursuit of the limit, you might figure out ways to improve the yield. Dose, time, temperature. Li Zheng couldn't help but say, isn't that just alchemy? It's not too far off. Shen Yun adjusted her glasses. Chemical experiments are fundamentally about manipulating the molecular activity in the microscopic world, creating the substances we need through the magic of bonds and rings. Upon hearing this, Li Zheng felt as though he had finally touched upon the threshold of chemistry. Now, looking at the focused and mischievously smiling Shi Yang, Li Zheng felt as if he were witnessing a master crafter of the microscopic world. So this was the very thrill of chemistry. Damn! His hands were starting to itch. He really wanted to do an experiment. Chapter 134. Upon hearing this, Li Zheng hurriedly held down his own Kylin arm and said, well, if you follow the steps, you should be able to produce 1 gram, right? You wish. Shen Yun glanced at Li Zheng, lowered her head, and the sharp gaze shot out from the angle between her glasses and her eyes. 60% of the students ended up with a final product of 0. Li Zheng felt a chill run down his spine, and these are the people who made it to the final competition, so all 40 points are gone. Yes, and by the way, I only scored 45 points on the experiment myself when I took it, and that was enough for a gold at the nationals. Shen Yun adjusted her glasses and, imitating her mentor's pretentious manner, explained coldly. Although the steps for this experimental question are given to you, there is still room for improvisation, requiring candidates to judge phenomena and adapt on the fly. A slight carelessness can trigger side reactions. If too conservative, it can result in inadequate yield. Therefore, conducting an experiment is not just about learning the procedure, it's a dual test of theoretical foundations and on-the-spot experience. Merely being an exam expert will invariably result in failure here. Even with 99 points. Li Zheng, keeping his gaze steadily on Shi Yang, agreed strongly with this. This question specified the doses only for salicylaldehyde and diethyl oxalate, leaving the catalyst, reactants, and operations merely broadly described. Like a recipe calling for a dash of dark soy, half a spoon of sugar, stir fry on low heat for a while. And this is where it gets crucial to be creative. Not only do you need to control the right dose as a cook, but you also have to improvise on the spot, adjusting your technique according to the cooking situation. A slight mistake, and you end up with a ruined dish. In chemistry, you also have to consider factors such as acidity and alkalinity, temperature, reaction, excess reaction, side reaction, and catalyst reaction. One error, and the final product could be completely different, leading to utter defeat. While in thought, Cobalt God had already turned on the oil bath pot switch and started heating for reflux. An oil bath pot is a heating device similar to an oven, used to carry out reactions that require heating in experiments. But such reactions can cause evaporation, leading to experimental losses. Hence, a condensation tube needs to be placed on the beaker to allow the vapor to condense into droplets and reflux back into the bottle. This process usually takes over half an hour, and the experimenter only needs to set the knob on the oil bath pot to a temperature to proceed with other tasks. But Cobalt God didn't do that. He gripped the knob with his right hand, slightly lifted his glasses with his left, and stared intently at the liquid inside the beaker. Time ticked by second. The test liquid soon showed a tendency to boil. Only then did Cobalt God carefully twist the knob to lower the temperature. But after it stabilized a bit, he adjusted the heat again. Li Zheng's eyes widened. Isn't this like the cooks at Chuanjude who roast ducks? In the midst of controlling qi, Shen Yun commented softly, he's racing against time. How can you tell? Li Zheng asked, eager to learn. Let me ask you, what happens if the temperature is too high and the reflux is intense? Shen Yun posed the question. Boiling over, Li Zheng, having memorized the entire cookbook, quickly replied, it would cause liquid pooling, then reduce the efficiency of the reaction, and might even trigger side reactions. Good, hence in this experiment, it's recommended to perform the heating reflux at around 80 degrees to keep the reflux rate within a safe range, Shen Yun said with a smile, but Shi Yang is obviously playing with fire, pushing for the boiling over point, to complete the reaction as quickly and efficiently as possible. Li Zheng nodded in assent, it's like boiling noodles on high heat, thinking you can control it just enough to not scorch the pot. That's a good analogy. Shen Yun narrowed her eyes, also lifting her glasses, but they've all scorched it. Hush, Cobalt God raised his hand in a gesture to be quiet. Shen Yun clenched her teeth and glared. I understand the pursuit of perfection. But you overconfident fellow, you've already made a big mistake just now. Let's see if you can still smile when the final product comes out. Li Zheng wasn't burdened with so many thoughts, he was just focused on absorbing the academic fortune. In the following time, Cobalt God, like Li Zheng working through exam questions, was completely focused, not uttering a half word. Crystallizing, filtering, washing with ethanol, recrystallizing, adding sodium hydroxide, heating for reflux again, pouring the reactants into concentrated hydrochloric acid water. Each of these processes was endowed with artistic beauty, chemical fervor, and the Shi clan's flair. Even if he couldn't absorb academic fortune, Li Zheng would have undoubtedly watched intently without turning away. 3 hours just passed by like that. After repeated crystallization and filtration, they finally entered the drying process. In the end, they obtained a large clump of white chunky crystal granules. After placing the product in the tray, Cobalt God let out a devilish smile, took half a step back, returned to his Shi Yang state, and raised his hand, saying, "Please." Only then did he notice that Shen Yun had disappeared. Turns out, she had fallen asleep leaning on the table next to them. Hey, this proctor. Shi Yang then turned his gaze to Li Zheng. This guy, however, was watching with rapt attention, still eagerly breathing heavily. Shi Yang then walked around the experiment table and approached to advise, "Bro, you can't smell it, and besides, it's not good to inhale too much of this stuff." "Oh, is it over?" Li Zheng finally closed his eyes, taking a brief rest. The harvest was fruitful. It was not just experimental skills, but also many profound insights. It felt as if he had watched once and obtained a lot of experimental inspiration, overall very itching to try. Seeing Li Zheng's reaction, Shi Yang also smiled. There are many types of coumarin, like this coumarin 3-carboxylic acid, it's not really necessary to do it this way. I can probably think of 7 or 8 methods to make it, and there are a lot of reagents in our experiment that could be replaced with others. If it weren't for the limitation of reagents, I could make several types of perfume for you on the spot. Amazing, Li Zheng couldn't help but exclaimed, where do you get all these ideas from? There's really nothing new, it's like playing with Lego, you know. Play with it enough, and you can build anything, Shi Yang gesticulated. When I first saw chemistry, it was all colorful, solid, liquid, gas changing back and forth, sometimes exploding, very interesting. But when I really started doing it, I found out that I was playing with elements and molecules, bonds and rings. Shi Yang then waved his hands dismissively, talking about this stuff isn't that interesting. I've tried several times to talk to the girls in our class to bring some into the chem competition circle, but they all ran off. Talk, I'm listening, I love to hear it. Li Zheng started to inhale deeply again. You're already in the circle. Shi Yang looked a bit disdainful, and you're not a girl. Damn it, don't be so biased towards beauty over friendship, Li Zheng cursed on the spot. We share a bond as deep as a shared sheet of toilet paper, can a girl do that with you? That's true. Shi Yang ultimately couldn't refute, and thus continued with his gestures. The fun part is that, in the microscopic world, combining and disassembling these tiny parts at will, assembling them freely, and every time you assemble something, it's different. There are also things that theoretically can be assembled but no one has succeeded yet, even things that theoretically shouldn't be assembled but somehow come into existence. It just feels like a lifetime is simply not enough. Li Zheng said blankly, does it feel like becoming a creator in the microscopic world? Hehe, I felt a bit like that as a kid, but the more I understand, the more reverence I have. Shi Yang suddenly became shy, wiped his nose, and gave a silly laugh. It's more like being an adventurer. Hearing this, Li Zheng, while absorbing academic fortune, sighed, it's embarrassing to say, but I've never had the experiences that Brother Shi talked about, and I don't know if it's a difference in talent or in realm. It's not your fault, it's all because of the textbooks, Shi Yang immediately exclaimed, look at the high school textbooks, are they even written for people? They start by making you memorize, things like the idea of producing alcohol without water. Shi Yang then began to stammer. Alcohol dehydration forms alkenes, Li Zheng awkwardly prompted, sulfuric acid to ethanol in a 3-to-1 ratio. Damn it! You've gone all out just to memorize that stuff, Shi Yang continued cursing. To learn chemistry, you first need to appreciate the charm of chemistry. It's like you are forced to study music theory without ever listening to music, having to memorize scores and such. What's the point in memorizing that? Quite reasonable, Li Zheng murmured, so how does one come to appreciate the charm of chemistry? Shi Yang laughed without answering. Li Zheng felt a bit apprehensive, even if there is enough sodium, the latrine wouldn't be sufficient. Just joking, doing experiments is the right way to go, preferably not prescribed experiments, but those where you can let your creativity fly, Shi Yang said more excitedly. For example, I could use the equipment and materials in this room to make shit for you out of thin air, believe it or not. I believe. Watching Shi Yang's fervent demeanor, Li Zheng gradually felt that maybe what drove his study of chemistry was not any charm of the subject, but rather an obsession with certain substances. That luck, damn, it's too frightening to steal. Meanwhile, Shen Yiyun finally woke up from the noise, squinted at her watch. Ah! There's no food left in the cafeteria. She then hurriedly got up, hastily put on her glasses, came over, and pretended to be a teacher. Oh, is it finished? Did you wait long? No problem, Shi Yang immediately shifted away from Shen Yiyun's gaze, radiating a confident smile, raising his hand commandingly. The volatility doesn't matter, it's sufficient. Whether it's sufficient or not isn't for you to say. Shen Yiyun tried to perk up, walked around to the front of the experiment table, and looked at the dish of white crystals. Her expression also became frantic. Why is there so much? She raised her glasses and asked, for the follow-up experiment, did you add more salicylaldehyde? No, Li Zheng said, I haven't closed my eyes the entire time, not a single drop of salicylaldehyde or diethyl oxalate was touched again. Then, let's weigh it. Shen Yiyun put on gloves, carefully picked up the dish, placed it on the electronic scale, then crouched down to look at the display. Immediately after, she shivered. Chapter 135. The trembling worsened. Her expression tightened too. This can't be right. How could it be this much? Shen Yiyun trembled as she stood up and questioned Shi Yang, you clearly added 1 milliliter too much piperidine, or did I see it wrongly? That's fine. Shi Yang still didn't have the courage to look directly at his senior sister, only revealing a plump side profile for her to admire, but it wasn't an extra milliliter, it was 0.78 milliliters. Shen Yiyun, grabbing her head in astonishment, exclaimed, each drop is 0.05 milliliters, how could you possibly be accurate to 0.01? Then what's the use of a high-precision syringe? Shi Yang then glanced at the syringe on the table, within 0.5 milliliters, I can do it by hand. Even so. Shen Yiyun, leaning on the table with both hands, asked unwillingly, why 0.78? Based on what? Shi Yang suddenly looked up, his mouth slightly raising, feel. TSS. Shen Yiyun's glasses almost fell off, nearly bursting out with a curse, you can do that based on feel. Caught in the middle, Li Zheng felt the atmosphere between the two was extremely frightening, seemingly even more terrifying than a showdown at the summit of the Forbidden. What's more terrifying was? He didn't quite understand. No matter, it's not embarrassing to ask. I'm a bit green. Just going to ask a little. Li Zheng walked up to the stage, picked up the bottle of piperidine reagent. In this reaction, piperidine acts as a catalyst, right? Shen Yiyun answered, yes. Normally, the molar ratio of piperidine to diethyl oxalate should be 1:1, converting that, in our reagent concentration, the volume ratio should be 1:10, that is, for every 10 milliliters of diethyl oxalate, 1 milliliter of piperidine corresponds. That's just the most conservative strategy. Shi Yang laughed, being conservative can't achieve high yield. Shen Yiyun stared at the white crystals in front of her, the problem lies here, increasing the dose of piperidine, ostensibly, it can indeed increase the yield, but the alkalinity and carbon anion will also increase, which in turn would cause it to further react with the intermediate product, coumarin 3-acetic ester, to form an amide, greatly lowering the yield. So, the heated reflux must be quick, Shi Yang, flexing his fingers, scoffed coldly, condensing the standard 1.5 hour heating process to within an hour. You know, heated reflux is dynamic, with the internal pressure and the reaction fluid constantly changing, thus using only a conservative constant temperature can't achieve the fastest reaction rate, only my constant observation and dynamic adjustment make it possible. This was in your calculations. Shen Yiyun gasped, I thought you were just rushing for time. Indeed rushing for time, but this isn't calculation, it's feeling. Shi Yang emphasized again. Feeling. Shen Yun struggled to comprehend, how can a chemical experiment rely on feeling? You just haven't done enough of them, Shi Yang retorted. Shen Yun cursed quietly, rage making her pound the table. I haven't done enough? Barely a month into my master's program. Stuck in the lab by my advisor. Working 10 hours every day. And that's not enough? For the first time, Shen Yun felt like hitting someone. In Li Zheng's eyes, a serene senior sister was gradually evolving into an irritable older sister. But at the same time, Li Zheng was desperately soaking up the scholarly aura spouting out amidst Shi Yang's bold declarations. A truly brilliant chef cooking isn't about rigidly following a standard procedure. He would adjust his cooking technique and the amount of seasoning dynamically based on the freshness of the ingredients, their tenderness, the feel of the cookware, the type of oil used, etc. These adjustments couldn't possibly be quantified by calculations. It's feeling, only feeling. Only someone immersed for years, consistently striving for self-improvement, unwilling to settle into some easy routine, always challenging oneself, like a god chef, could develop such instincts. In comparison, Li Zheng looked towards Shen Yun, who was gasping for air by the table. Although the senior sister was also 1 in 10,000. She was shackled by the repetitive heavy work in the lab. She gradually conformed to procedures and stopped thinking. Enjoying the convenience of shortcuts, she ignored the growth that came with thorns. Senior sister. You have already lost. But it can't be this much. Shen Yun stared dead at the crystals. The biggest product loss in this experiment occurs during one step, where it's necessary to wash with 50% ethanol, but at the same time, the ester will also dissolve in the ethanol. This product loss in this step is unavoidable. I, of course, know that. Shi Yang methodically walked toward the wall, silently tapping on a small refrigerator. A lazy person will never see the sunrise. Shen Yun glared suddenly. Ethanol. You chilled it. Li Zheng clapped his hands together. Brilliant. As the temperature decreased, the reaction slowed down, but its impact on the washing effect was minimal. At the same time, it maximally preserved the precious esters. Brilliant. Good thing ethanol has a low freezing point. Shi Yang lifted his glasses. Any other questions, senior? Shen Yun gradually lowered her head, her eyes unfocused. No more. This guy, he's only in his second year of high school. My national gold medal, is it really so insignificant? 4 years of undergraduate. 2 years as a graduate student. What have I been doing? For over a year, working 10 hours a day in the lab. What am I really doing? Me, at G University Chemical Institute. Am I really so insignificant? Just as she was on the verge of breaking down, Li Zheng came over just in time. Shi Yang is indeed terrifying, but I believe, senior, that you also have talent. Li Zheng sighed gently, but treating the experiment as just work must make it boring, right? Ah! Shen Yun groaned inwardly. Yes, I don't know when it started. I hate experiments the most now. Just finish today's tasks and that's it. My mind is filled with nothing but eating and sleeping. This is us. The group of people known as research livestock. I'm not worthy of teaching you. With her glasses off and head hanging, Shen Yun sighed somberly. I'll go talk to the mentor, let him find a doctoral senior brother. Don't, Shi Yang is not ordinary. Even if the mentor comes, he might suffer, Li Zheng said passionately. Senior, even though he doesn't need you, I do. At least for the next few days, take a break, don't work in the lab. Just stay here, start from scratch, teach me bit by bit, and let's try to find the joy of chemistry together. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Ah! Shen Yun was moved once again. If it's only you. That would be wonderful. Then, Shen Yun rubbed her face, put on her glasses, and tried to muster up a teacher's authority. Junior, I am very strict, she said, avoiding Li Zheng's gaze. Why else would I come to G University if not for strictness? Ambitious. Shen Yun then turned to look at Shi Yang, and instantly, a layer of frost covered her face. I can't teach you, you should leave. Leaning against the refrigerator, hand on his forehead in the pose of a chemistry adept, Shi Yang nearly fell over. Damn it, why? Aren't girls supposed to be attracted to strong ones? Am I not strong enough? Then he looked at Li Zheng and Shen Yun huddling together, tenderly tidying up the lab equipment. Shi Yang suddenly understood. It's the maternal instinct. The maternal instinct of a senior sister to protect the weak. Thinking about it, all those popular male idols, don't they all look like delicate, soft babies? Is there an idol who is a tough, rugged man? Damn it! Good job, Li Zheng. Acting so weak, turns out it's just another player's tactic. Is this also within your calculations? Chapter 136. What's there to calculate anyway? The senior sister definitely deserved respect. Not only could she guide his studies, but she could also boost his vitality during this time away from school. On the other hand, his brother hadn't had enough of academic fortune, which meant he couldn't let him go either. Watching their completely misaligned gazes, Li Zheng felt a headache coming on. You people with such low emotional intelligence are so troublesome. Fortunately, there was an excellent opportunity to shift their attention now. How about we go have a meal first? Li Zheng tentatively looked at his senior sister. The cafeteria's already closed, but it doesn't matter. Shen Yun chuckled, throwing off her white lab coat. Come on, senior sister will take you to eat out. Alright, find a place that can issue receipts. Li Zheng also picked up his backpack. You don't need to bring your backpack, we'll come back after eating. Shen Yun pocketed her phone and waved her hand, saying, anyone who isn't planning to come back, please carry your backpack with you. Shi Yang sighed with a bitter expression, walking to the table to pick up his backpack. This is probably what it means to win the experiment, but lose at life. As he picked up his backpack, he couldn't help but look towards the door. Shen Yun was checking her watch, waiting for him to come out so she could lock the door. Li Zheng stood by her side, squinting over with a half smile. Not a single person seemed to have any intention of inviting him to join them. Senior sister and brother, both had abandoned him. Shi Yang swallowed hard, hoisting the backpack onto his back, pulling the straps over his head forcefully. Damn it, society is so cruel. And what about that crap about the familiarity of having used the same piece of toilet paper? All bullshit. This guy had calculated everything from the start, intending to get rid of me and monopolize senior sister. Brotherhood is unreliable. Just as Shi Yang was about to put his phone away, the screen suddenly flashed, revealing a message. It was a private chat from the QQ group. Li Zheng, do as I say. Li Zheng, immediately say the following to senior sister. Li Zheng, senior sister, it's just that I was lucky with the experiment today, I wouldn't know how to do more difficult ones, and you definitely know more than I do. Can I follow you and learn for a couple more days? Plus, I got too focused on the experiment and delayed everyone's lunch, so at the very least, let me treat you to a meal before I go. This speech, like a blazing sun, swept through Shi Yang's cold heart, instantly igniting it. Shi Yang's eyes widened as he looked towards Li Zheng at the door. Li Zheng, holding his phone, subtly nodded. Brother. My good brother, I misunderstood you. That look was supposed to mean this. Without giving it another thought, Shi Yang quickly pocketed his phone, strode to the door, and repeated the script Li Zheng had provided, word for word, his head down. Shen Yun was also surprised. She was aware that the words she had previously said, I can't teach you, just go, were indeed not very appropriate. It was just that this little fatty was indeed too irritating to endure. At this moment, seeing Shi Yang take the initiative to lower his head, Shen Yun casually waved it off as if it were nothing. Oh my, I didn't actually mean for you to leave, I just didn't want to waste your time here, I didn't want to hold you back from improving. Shi Yang was quite straightforward, immediately nodding in acknowledgement. It's okay, you don't need to teach me, just provide me with some more reagents, and I can improve by myself. A layer of frost once again covered Shen Yun's face. Even if you see me as a tool sister, is it necessary to say it out loud? Li Zheng stood beside her, vigorously scratching his head, frustrated at Shi Yang's improvisation. Just follow what I said, don't ad-lib. Let's go, let's eat first. Li Zheng quickly changed the subject. Since Shi Yang is in such a good mood, let's splurge on him. You shouldn't let you guys pay, I'll do it. Shen Yun locked the door with a very indifferent tone. I insist, it's got to be me. Shi Yang made an earnest effort. That's not quite right. Shen Yun unenthusiastically began to refuse. All right, enough said, Shi Yang is treating. Li Zheng issued the final decree, and packed the dinner to bring back, too. After confirming Shi Yang was treating, Shen Yun didn't really have the heart to fleece him and just picked a cheap ramen restaurant. 1 bowl of noodles and 3 skewers of meat each was enough to settle the meal. Li Zheng thought Shi Yang was just shy and slow to warm up, hoping he'd be able to strike up a conversation with his senior during the meal. But this dude, as soon as he saw the ramen and lamb skewers, turned his face and grabbed 2 heads of garlic. As a result, he spent the entire meal wrestling with the garlic and actually finished it all. During the meal, he also conveniently packed up stir-fried dough slices and pulled noodles, various side dishes, for dinner. Shi Yang was shy and kept silent throughout the meal, focusing on his garlic, but when it came time to pay, he took the initiative, even stuffing the receipt into Li Zheng's hands. It was truly pitiful. Back at the Chemical Institute, Shen Yun had to retrieve some materials from the project lab and gave the keys to Li Zheng, telling them to practice freely and to be safe. Shi Yang followed Li Zheng back to the teaching lab and took a seat by the window, basking in the afternoon sun, before he dared to speak his mind. Brother. Shi Yang looked at Li Zheng with grateful eyes, your emotional intelligence is really high. Hat. Li Zheng casually ruffled his hair, indeed, I won't be modest about this. You must have a lot of girlfriends, right? Not really, just the occasional exchange, Li Zheng waved his hand, all for the sake of learning. Ah, stop playing, Shi Yang said eagerly, please teach me. When talking, I don't even dare to look at girls. The prettier they are, the more flustered I get. What's there to be flustered about? They're just girls. I've never been flustered. Li Zheng began, but then thought of certain people, and hastily added, actually, I do get flustered occasionally. The girls that even you get flustered around must be really pretty. You have to introduce me to them. Shi Yang was already letting his imagination run wild. Anyway, I'm going to stick with you these days, so you've got to teach me more about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, hey. Li Zheng, resting his chin on his hand, said with some difficulty, it's 70% talent and 30% experience. Those who know it get it immediately, and it's hard to convey if you don't understand. 70% talent and 30% experience. Shi Yang said fiercely, isn't that, like, chemistry? Yeah, roughly the same idea. Then I understand. After thinking for a moment, Shi Yang perked up, in that case, brother, over the next few days, I'll do my best to teach you experiments, tell you all the tricks I know, and you take what you can from it. Please also try to talk more with our senior, so I can learn, and if possible, carve out a chance for me to have a chat too. Let's get into real practice. It's a rare opportunity, at least let me grasp that 30% experience. What are you talking about? Li Zheng straightened his face, whether or not you teach me experiments, I don't mind sharing some insights on emotional intelligence. We've used the same sheet of toilet paper, discussing and exchanging knowledge is right. There's no need for this setup. You talk like that and I'll get angry. Shi Yang slapped his forehead, full of remorse, yeah, why am I so low? I also regret not meeting a brother sooner and wanting to improve together. Why does it sound so bad when I say it? It must be an emotional intelligence issue, right, an emotional intelligence issue. Brother Shi, don't panic, just follow me and learn slowly over these next few days, starting with observing words and expressions. Don't rush to do any fancy tricks. After another 10 minutes or so of conversation, it was nearly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, about time to get down to business. Li Zheng got up and walked over to the experimental bench. He had been too busy watching Shi Yang and Shen Yun spar that he only now remembered to check the display of the electronic balance. 2.31 grams. If he remembered correctly, the theoretical yield was 2.53 grams. That meant that Shi Yang's yield was over 91%. Exceeding the operational limit of this experimental environment. Of course, this limit was just a rule of thumb, like it's very hard for humans to run 100 meters under 10 seconds. And Shi Yang, it was as though he casually ran a 9.8-second sprint. Seeing as Shen Yun, a professional track athlete, was bested by a wild child, it wasn't too hard to understand the emotional blow. Impressive, brother Shi. Li Zheng sincerely admired the numbers. With your skill, you really should go straight into a PhD-level laboratory. It's all the same, Shi Yang, seeing the eager look on Li Zheng's face, cheekily replied, looking at you, you want to give it a try, too, don't you? I do. Then let's do it. Shi Yang immediately started to tidy up the workbench. You don't have to strictly follow my method. Just work step by step according to what you think is best. Don't be afraid even if you make a mistake. You just do it, and we'll discuss it after. How can I be so bold? Li Zheng said, pursing his lips, after all, we are, right? What? Shi Yang, clueless, with our relationship, isn't there anything we can't say outright? Then I'll be frank. Li Zheng cleared his throat nervously, after all, we are in competition, whether it's in training or in the national competition. You helping me without holding back, I always feel a little awkward. Nonsense. Shi Yang's eyes widened in anger, cursing with a mouth full of garlic, you know what I hate most? In fighting. There are fewer and fewer people studying chemistry, yet you press down your brothers to be kings among the short-sighted. What's the point in that? Brother Shi. Shut up, listen to me. Shi Yang glared at the experimental bench, the garlic breath growing more intense. My most admired teacher once said any competition is not within you, but outside you. What really matters is, how can we achieve higher academic levels than those outside? If we simply snuff out our own, the whole field will end up ridiculed. The current atmosphere in some academic circles is just made up by a bunch of idiots who only know how to hold on to their meager results and oppress others. I'm here to stir the pot. Once the shit has decomposed, the real deal floats to the surface. I don't care who belongs to whom, anyone who likes chemistry is my brother, anyone who enjoys power struggles can get the hell out. Li Zheng watched the academic fortune bursting forth from Shi Yang's eyes. And the Allison. He was fired up. Brother. Li Zheng grabbed Shi Yang's shoulder firmly, from now on, my knowledge is your knowledge. Cut the crap, let's get the experiment going. Shi Yang, impassioned, wiped the garlic juice from his mouth, then his eyebrows mischievously raised, or should I first synthesize some invigorating scent for you? Chapter 137. You must do it based on your own understanding, I won't speak throughout, just record. Shi Yang pulled up a chair, sat down, and began rummaging through his backpack. Rigid routines only kill your creativity, that's how the senior ended up like this. He wasn't entirely wrong in saying that. But suddenly, Li Zheng felt a chill coming from the door. A quick glance to the side. Shen Yun was standing at the door with materials in hand, eyes wide and seemingly on the verge of full-blown rage. She. Li Zheng, frightened, quickly lowered his head and swallowed before saying, the senior is just temporarily overwhelmed with tasks. Once she engages in research work, she will start creating very soon. Nah, no chance, chemical inspiration doesn't just come when called, Shi Yang said, head down, brother, you don't need to think too highly of postgraduates, the stuff they do every day in their labs, even a trained orangutan could almost manage. No. No. It's not the same, brother Shi. Li Zheng had started stomping his foot. Hehe, might be even worse than orangutans. Shi Yang threw a notebook and pen on the table, chuckling as he lifted his eyes, speaking of which, brother, do you think the senior has a boyfriend? Is she still? Good afternoon, senior. Li Zheng suddenly yelled and snapped to attention. Shi Yang, scared, kicked the table and toppled over. Shen Yun's face twitched, and she walked in with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Ha, you two seem to be having a great time here. No. Shi Yang picked up his glasses, stood up in a panic with the help of the table. I mean, an orangutan is also a higher mammal, just, orangutans and humans aren't that different. Li Zheng glared fiercely, brother Shi, better to say less. All right, carry on as you wish. Shen Yun sat down with her materials. I'm too ignorant, better think how to get along with orangutans. Li Zheng exclaimed, this has nothing to do with me, don't drag me into this too. Shi Yang glared, every man for himself now? Li Zheng hurriedly whispered, at least save one of us. That makes sense. I misinterpreted, my emotional intelligence is low, Shi Yang nodded repeatedly. All right, I need to write the report now. Shen Yun opened her materials and said, Shi Yang, with your great skills, you teach Li Zheng. Li Zheng immediately held down Shi Yang and quickly said, Senior, it doesn't work like that, I have a competitive relationship with Shi Yang, he needs to train himself for his experiments, it's not convenient for him to teach me. That's true, Shen Yun looked at the two with a sneer. Well then, about that experiment, you do it first. Whenever you achieve a 70% yield, I will teach you. Don't say. Then 80%. 70, just 70. Li Zheng quickly replied, I really don't have the high talent like Shi Yang, let me try doing it once, and if you're free, senior, maybe take a glance and finally guide me. All right, Shen Yun waved her hand, be careful. Okay. Li Zheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. Not to. Brother. Shi Yang whispered, clutching Li Zheng's arm, why did you agree so easily? Aren't you only good at lighting alcohol lamps? Doing such a complex experiment for the first time, being thankful for even a 1% yield. SHH, Li Zheng whispered, you don't understand women. Oh. When women are angry, you must listen to their words in reverse. Li Zheng pointed seriously at his forehead, think about it, if I really achieve 70% on the first try, wouldn't the senior see no need for her existence? What would there be left to guide? That is true. So, the senior is merely speaking out of anger, wanting me to experience the hardships of experiments. Li Zheng peeked at Shen Yun, who was earnestly writing her report. As for the results of the experiment, the worse I do, the happier the senior will be, and the more she will come to guide me. Awesome, brother. Shi Yang's eyes widened, truly a master, I did well to follow you. Don't look so pleased. Li Zheng quickly pressed him down again, keep in mind, women act according to their emotions, we must not boast now. From now on, the more we fail, the better the senior's mood will be, and once I botch this experiment completely, the senior will naturally be all smiles. Okay. Shi Yang nodded repeatedly, just act like a total fool, right? Don't force it, it's best after genuinely trying and failing utterly, to look like a complete fool sincerely. Li Zheng then picked up a pipette, just as we said before, don't correct me, I'll do it according to my own understanding, and I'm bound to utterly fail since it's my first experiment. Good, then just as we said, I'll only record without speaking, and we'll discuss after you're done. Shi Yang unfolded his notebook and rolled up his sleeves to settle down. But seeing Li Zheng anxiously studying the gradations on the dropper, he felt somewhat reluctant. Brother, I should still give you some guidance, otherwise, it's just a wild goose chase. After all, it's going to take 3 or 4 hours, and it would be a waste to just squander that time. All right, speak, Li Zheng said. Well. Shi Yang, stroking his chin, said, first layer before starting the experiment, clarify the principle behind each step in your mind. I had already clarified it while you were doing it, Li Zheng said. The first step in the reaction involves salicylaldehyde and diethyl malonate synthesizing coumarin 3-ethyl ester under pyridine catalysis, followed by the addition of an alkali to hydrolyze the ester and lactone groups, and finally acidification to reform the lactone ring, resulting in coumarin 3-carboxylic acid. Nice, worthy of being my brother. The theory is sound, so let's jump directly to the second layer, said Shi Yang with a satisfied smile. Second layer, imagine the microscopic world in your mind. Visualize in each step which bonds we need to break and form. During this process, consider how each reagent will impact the reaction and try to predict the byproducts as accurately as possible. Once everything is clear, adjust the quantities and the reaction environment based on your understanding of chemistry to achieve maximum efficiency. Damn! Li Zheng's eyes widened, academic fortune exploded. He absorbed the information while closing his eyes in mental exploration. He tried to imagine himself entering the world of microscopic particles. In this world, each atom was a point. These points were bound together by a force known as bonds. When 2 or more different elements were linked by bonds, they formed a compound. What Li Zheng needed to do was to destroy some of the existing compounds' bonds and reattach them where he needed. However, he lacked the strength to do this with his bare hands. He needed to rely on other substances to accomplish it. The trouble was when these substances mixed together, they often caused more side reactions, breaking more bonds or occupying the points Li Zheng wanted to attach. For this reason, Li Zheng tried hard to visualize every process, every collision between molecules. How to make them collide only in the directions he desired. He was getting the feel of it. Then combining it with Shi Yang's prior use of an excess of pyridine and the technique involving cold ethanol, he imagined these actions' impacts on the microscopic chemical world. Brilliant! Li Zheng's meditation delved deeper until he had completed the entire process. Only then did he suddenly open his eyes. He then gave his characteristic intense stare. Your study of Shi Yang's academic fortune has reached its limit. Total academic fortune gained, 26. Academic fortune, 430. Talent acquired chemical meditation. Chemical meditation enables efficient simulation of chemical reactions in the microscopic world through thought, thus facilitating the design and improvement of experiments and inspiring more experimental ideas. Looking at his intense expression, Shi Yang tremblingly asked, "Did you comprehend it that easily, brother?" "I comprehended," Li Zhang replied without hesitation, grabbing the dropper and nodding at Shi Yang. "Thank you deeply, brother." "Ah? I just mentioned it casually, it's nothing that significant." "It is significant." With that, Li Zhang embarked on his first experimental journey. By then, he had fully grasped every key point of the experiment, and had developed some of his own interpretations. Almost all of it coincided with Shi Yang's actions. The feeling of stealing expertise was unpleasant. But indisputably, Shi Yang's choices were already the limit within the existing knowledge structure. Li Zhang thus made a firm resolve that for future experiments, he would no longer borrow insights but must comprehend them on his own. Chapter 138. His actual operations were still stiff and a complete mess. Just the step of drawing up 1 milliliter of salicylaldehyde had him fumbling for 3 minutes. There really was no cure for inexperience. Even if he had grasped the thinking of a god chef, without personally stirring pots thousands of times, he still wouldn't reach the standard. Regarding this, there was nothing much to say, practice makes perfect. After a while, Shen Yun saw Li Zhang scratching his head and grimacing in front of the oil bath pot and began to feel sorry for him. She pretended to stretch lazily, put down her materials, and wandered over to where Li Zhang and Shi Yang were. "I'm just strolling around, I'm not going to instruct you," said Shen Yun, glancing at the substance in the flask. "This is okay, but your movements are really too clumsy, and that will delay a lot of time." "Indeed," Shi Yang sighed, "but Li Zhang is amazing. Looking at his technique, he's very clumsy, definitely a first-timer, but each step is exceptionally steady. Apart from his speed and the aesthetics of the movements, I actually can't find much fault with it." "Like, stupidly steady?" Shen Yun asked. "That's the idea," Shi Yang nodded. "His style is different from mine, he doesn't take risks but seeks precision and accuracy." Shen Yun glanced at him and said, "Ha, you mean he lacks creativity, right? Looking down on people again?" "Not at all," Shi Yang replied seriously, shaking his head. "This precision isn't due to being conservative, it's calculated precision, unerringly steady. Plus, it's his first time conducting an experiment, and he's facing a harsh assessment from his senior, it's right to be more cautious." Hey, 70% is harsh? You scored 91%. It's different. If you asked me to do it for the first time with just theoretical knowledge, even 50% would be decent." Shi Yang gazed at Li Zhang, who was gradually entering demonization. "I have the feeling that his approach to learning is completely different from mine. How should I put it? I'm a bit panicked." Shen Yun chuckled, feeling threatened by number 1. Yet, Shi Yang looked down slightly, observing his own trembling hands. "No, it's not panic, it's excitement." "How can I be panicked when he's not a girl?" "Humph, talking nonsense." Shen Yun nudged her lips towards the big white notebook in front of Shi Yang. "Didn't you mark down his experimental errors?" "No experimental errors so far," Shi Yang nodded. "Of course, as for elegance and beauty, 0, no, 100. His movements are just too silly, I really want to hit him." Watching Li Zhang, who looked like a master Peking duck chef attentively observing the heating reflux process, Shen Yun, for once, found herself in agreement with Shi Yang. "I agree," Shen Yun said somewhat sympathetically, "maybe I should guide some of his movements." "You back off." Shi Yang raised his hand. "This is Li Zhang's experiment." Fine. I tried to give you both a way out." Shen Yun clenched her teeth and turned to walk away. "You keep chatting. It's impossible to achieve 70% yield on a first experiment, that's the standard of excellence for an undergraduate. Do you really think graduating from G University's chemistry college is so easy?" Only when he heard the angry tone in her voice did Shi Yang realize that he had actually been chatting with the senior for quite a while. He immediately got shy again. "All right, whatever the senior says is right. Still looking down on people, aren't you? That's what you're doing, isn't it?" Shen Yun, angry, returned to her seat. I had intended to cut you some slack. Fine. When you achieve a 70% yield rate, then you can talk to me. Unknowingly, 3.5 hours had passed. Due to constant clumsiness and inexperience in his operation, Li Zheng had already worked up quite a sweat several times over. Thankfully Shi Yang had come by during to refill his water bottle, allowing him to down 2 large cups of water. At this moment, Li Zheng looked slightly disheveled. But holding the watch glass and looking at the clump of white crystals on it, Li Zheng was beaming with energy, feeling like he had conquered a world, and as if he had blocked Lin Yujing 100 times in a row. This is coumarin 3-carboxylic acid, right? Li Zheng asked tremulously. Definitely, I've been watching the whole time, it didn't go anywhere. Shi Yang also wiped off some sweat and patted Li Zheng on the shoulder. Awesome, bro, that's quite a lot. All nicked from your techniques, Li Zheng said with a silly smile. I racked my brains trying to figure out a way to improve it, but I really couldn't find an entry point. Never mind improving, the fact that you understood my techniques is already pretty amazing. The senior turned his head towards Shen Yun. Junior sister, wake up. Shen Yun, who was dozing off at the table with a snore, instantly shivered and stiffened up, screaming, no. I'm not a gorilla, don't lock me up with a gorilla. This must be, having a nightmare, right? It seems, junior sister's worldviews and self-awareness have been influenced by Shi Yang. Shen Yun was confused for a moment before she realized something was not right, hurriedly put on her glasses. I just suddenly dreamt of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the movie, it's all because of the movie. After speaking, she rubbed her eyes and quickly came over. Seeing the big pile in front of Li Zheng, she shivered again. Hey! Shen Yun exclaimed in shock as she adjusted her glasses. Shi Yang, did you help out? I really didn't. Shi Yang backed away half a step. I give my word of honor. No need, I believe you guys. Shen Yun quickly waved her hands and took a deep breath, put on gloves, and placed the petri dish on the electronic scale. The screen showed 2 guaranis and 5 centimos. Yield, 81%. Shen Yun swallowed. Is it fully dried out? Neither of them answered, the question was too unprofessional. Ah, yeah, well, this. Shen Yun scratched her head in some disarray. Li Zheng, considering your techniques and posture, if you said this was your first time, I'd believe you. The yield is right there, and I haven't got much more to say, so. What I mean is, a junior like you. She suddenly turned her head, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at Li Zheng. You must make it into the national team for me. Li Zheng was shocked. What's going on with you, junior sister? Prague. March next year, Prague. Shen Yun grabbed Li Zheng's shoulder, turning to Shi Yang at the same time. You two freaks, just go to Prague. Go and show those people what a real freak is. Ha, Shi Yang chuckled, wiping his nose, that's part of the plan. All right, let's get to work, said Shen Yun, brushing off her listlessness, and scratching her head. Even if we don't talk about Aiko, with you guys on this year's Jiajing team, we can be called freakishly strong. I know you all are very confident, but I still have strengths over you in experiments and theories. Starting now, I'm going to get serious about teaching. Li Zheng immediately began to wash the lab equipment. Thanks, junior sister. Really? I'm not so sure. Shi Yang said, full of doubt. I don't care about you. Shen Yun raised her hand and drew a line in front of her eyes. You have been blocked. From now on, I'll pretend you don't exist. Shi Yang was instantly dumbfounded. I was just being honest. Which part was problematic? Why did it have to be like this? And, it's not like Li Zheng is a weakling anymore. Why are you becoming even more protective, junior sister? What on earth are women thinking? Chapter 139. Lost her enthusiasm quite quickly. And soon regretted it. She started around 5:30 in the afternoon, leading the two of them separately through hands-on explanations of graduate-level, exceptionally difficult experiments. She went on until 11:30, conducting 3 complex mock experiments. Throughout the whole process, there was no food to eat, no bathroom to use. This environment and workload were probably equal to twice that of a project laboratory. In the end, Shen Yun just wanted to cry. Men, they're all monsters. I really should have listened to my mom. Why does a girl bother with chemistry? Finally, at 11:45, under Shen Yun's teary eyes. Li Zheng and Shi Yang were prepared to let her off the hook temporarily. Then the three of them ate the stir-fried flat noodles and pulled noodles brought from noon together. Shen Yun tearfully ate the weird stuff she didn't want to eat. Only then did she realize. Li Zheng was not as simple as he looked. He had anticipated this and, shockingly, had packed these bizarre foods as early as lunchtime. All of it, all within his calculations. Compared to these two monsters, senior brothers are still better. Those with sparse hair, who speak even less than the amount of their hair, so simple to the point of being dull. My senior brothers somehow have become adorable. Come midnight, Li Zheng and Shi Yang had finished their own stir-fried noodles, but Shen Yun had only eaten half a box of pulled noodles. She was sad, had no appetite, and she divided the remaining noodles between the two men. Yet both of them gave a devilishly charming smile, carrying their pulled noodles back to the experiment bench. "Ha ha, brother, now we've got the material," Shi Yang said, rubbing his hands excitedly. "Our most anticipated experiment can begin first. Add some acidic substance, simulating stomach reactions." Naturally that's simple. Li Zheng pondered, but digestive reactions largely rely on microorganisms, right? It needs a large number of bacteria involved and also time to ferment. No worries, biology is just a small branch of chemistry. Shi Yang looked around and suggested, given the raw materials here aren't quite enough, let's forget the process and strive for the end result. Let's brainstorm how to use the reagents we have at hand to quickly turn these noodles soft and into a brownish color. I could do that, got a bit of inspiration already. Li Zheng had just replied but then frowned, but that way, it's just form without soul. Easy to handle. Shi Yang chuckled mischievously, we can synthesize some hydrogen sulfide, indole, and scatol. Li Zheng exclaimed, scatol? There's such a thing. I specifically researched it, it is actually 3-methyl-indole, C9H9N, which can be created through Fischer-indole synthesis. Shi Yang looked up and asked, "Senior sister, we need some aldehydes, ketones, and anhydrides." Shen Yun was already staring at the two with bloodshot eyes. "Why don't you go to Prague to synthesize this stuff? Let the foreigners get a good look at your skills." "That doesn't seem appropriate." Shi Yang stroked his chin thoughtfully. "I heard foreigners have a heavier taste than us. Wouldn't that be showing off?" Li Zheng protested. No, brother Shi, only you are worthy of the class level." "Enough talk." Shen Yun smacked the lighting control panel. "Lights out. Everyone go home." Even after leaving the laboratory, Li Zheng and Shi Yang were still chatting away. Though they couldn't perform any experiments, they reveled in mentally simulating synthetic roots. In the deserted courtyard, Shen Yun trudged behind the two, full of bitterness. Even though she vehemently opposed their distasteful humor, she had to admit, their eyes were alight. Despite the darkness of night, it was as if they lit up the entire yard. Having studied for so many years, Shen Yun prided herself on having seen all kinds of academic overachievers. But such pure aberrations like these two were a first for her. Together, they only had eyes for chemistry itself. Whereas the senior brothers in the laboratory, including herself, were all thinking about whether to stay at school or find a job, whether to go abroad or further studies, whether to switch to a more lucrative industry. Under the moonlight, Shen Yun sighed softly. These research cattle, if we could return to our teenage years, there would probably also be one or two youths like Li Zheng and Shi Yang. Only, this period of pure idealism, free from anything but ideals, passes faster than a shooting star. Gone in the blink of an eye. Now, all I can do is follow you from a distance, with envy, jealousy, and hatred, with resignation and sorrow, with longing and numbness, secretly feeling our ideals that will eventually fade away, yet were once eternal. Lost in these emotions, the three of them reached the gate. Shi Yang was still discussing Fischer-indole synthesis. Thankfully, Li Zheng was gradually snapping out of his chemical fervor and timely interrupted Shi Yang, nodding to Shen Yun, "Senior sister, we've delayed your leaving work. Anyway, it's not for many more days." Shen Yun waved her hand hastily. "You guys, go for it, cherish this time." "We will." Li Zheng looked around and added, "For that reason, I'm planning to find a budget hotel to stay in." Shen Yun immediately became flustered again. "You don't need to value it that much. My home is far, it's a 2-hour trip back and forth," Li Zheng said with a wry smile. "I really can't bear the waste. I want to experiment, do more experiments, make up for all the happiness owed to me by chemistry." "Did you tell your family?" Shi Yang immediately took out his phone, eyebrows raised, staying alone in a double room, isn't that a waste? You can do it too. Li Zheng was surprised, that's perfect, I'll pay for the room, you'll cover the meals. Fair enough. Watching their enthusiastic exchange, Shen Yun hefted her backpack strap, well. I'll be going then. Shi Yang, truly a pure soul, blurted out without thinking, that's okay, senior sister, together. Li Zheng quickly stepped on him. It was only then that Shi Yang reacted, chuckling with his head down, I mean. I've just gotten used to the three of us doing experiments together, hee. Shen Yun just smiled lightly. It was clear that the kid didn't do it on purpose, all his brain circuits were dedicated to the periodic table, leaving any remaining IQ in the toilet. All right, you two, keep at it, Shen Yun said, lifting her fist in encouragement, in the future, you have to aim higher and farther than me, to experience the true essence of chemistry for us lab animals. Scratching his head, Shi Yang grinned, don't worry, I'm definitely going to go further than the average grad student. God damn it, this guy is doing this on purpose. Luckily, Li Zheng was sensible and walked quickly up to Shen Yun with a tender smile on his face. Shen Yun bit her lip, ready for what was to come. The kid was about to say something that would make one feel all tingly and numb again. He's probably going to forcibly send me back to the dorm. I don't mind that at all. Lost in thought, Li Zheng looked intently at Shen Yun and said softly with a smile, so, it's up to you to open the door at 7 in the morning tomorrow. Wait. Shi Yang suddenly raised his hand, it's so late, shouldn't we escort our senior back to her dorm? Yeah, Li Zheng also reacted. But Shen Yun had already crossed the road as if fleeing from a nightmare, shouting, don't come over. I live inside the school. You guys go, just go. Shen Yun's nightmare of 3 days had officially begun. Meanwhile, although the senior was resistant, Li Zheng and Shi Yang still made sure she entered G University East Gate before they left at ease. That night, after Li Zheng and Shi Yang had washed up and retired to their own beds, it was already past 1 in the morning. They should have fallen asleep quickly, but they were both still too excited, tossing and turning. What's scarier, Shi Yang had eaten too much garlic, his luck was very strong. Li Zheng was starting to regret inviting him. After tossing and turning for 5 or 6 minutes, Shi Yang could no longer hold back. It was like military training or some camp. In a boys' dorm, after the lights are out, it's impossible to fall asleep immediately. An eternal topic is bound to emerge. And that is girls. Shi Yang whispered, Li Zheng, that Lin Yujing, is she pretty? Go to sleep, brother Shi, Li Zheng gently reminded, and stop flapping the blanket. Just airing it out, airing it out. Shi Yang turned over, calling from across the divider, we finally have a chemistry girl, is she pretty or not? Pretty, I guess. Is she prettier than the senior? Well. They're different types. Quick, tell me what kind of types. It's like, that kind of wildness. Have you ever seen a stray cat? You want to pet it, but it runs away. When you leave, it follows you back. Ah, that does sound interesting, Shi Yang sighed while hugging his blanket, this is a genuine chemistry girl, why can't I ever meet one? You're thinking too much, she hates chemistry. Shut up, don't ruin my fantasy. Shi Yang persisted, one more question, is Lin Yujing better looking than Wushu? Brother Shi, as someone in chemistry, you should realize that a person's appearance is merely a combination of proteins and bones, there's no need to judge others by the shape of their proteins, right? Now that you mention it, why do I suddenly feel like everything is so dull? That's the spirit. Go to sleep. The next morning, Li Zheng had even more regrets. It was as if they were ill-fated. The timing for him and Shi Yang to use the toilet was overly synchronized. When men fight over the bathroom, brotherly love goes out the window. The one who gets there first enjoys it, the one who goes later not only has to hold it but also has to endure the luck left by the former. Fortunately, in the lab, Shi Yang was an open book. With the guidance of Shen Yun and the boost of academic fortune, Li Zheng's experimental skills had improved rapidly. As for Shi Yang, while guiding Li Zheng, he also occupied 2 experimental tables, one for the high-difficulty experiments with Shen Yun, and the other for his own amusement, 80% of the time producing stench substances, occasionally consulting Shen Yun with some questions, he too made quite a progress. Shen Yun, unsurprisingly, spent a lot of time catching up on sleep, The days usually passed by happily like this. But the nights were always tough. Apart from luck, Shi Yang had to pester Li Zheng every night to talk about girls, no less than half an hour each time. Li Zheng wanted to kick him into a roadside massage parlor. But upon reflection, he couldn't mention this to Shi Yang. He couldn't let him know that massage parlors existed in this world. On Thursday night, the 3-day experimental blitz finally ended. Shen Yun was a mess, on the verge of seeing the 4 o'clock morning sun in Jiajing. But in the end, she still treated Li Zheng and Shi Yang to a hot pot buffet. After all, they hadn't eaten properly for a few days. Li Zheng, usually eating plain and simple at home, had gotten used to a bland diet, and was doing fine these days. But Shi Yang was truly bursting at the seams with all the food he ate at the buffet, non-stop from the beginning to the end, for a solid 2 hours, which was probably equivalent to 2 or 3 times the amount that Li Zheng and Shen Yun had eaten combined. When it was time to part ways. Actually, nobody really felt like they were saying goodbye. Because they would see each other again on Saturday for the training camp, not only Li Zheng and Shi Yang, but Shen Yun was also one of the coaching staff. Even so, Li Zheng and Shi Yang still made a vow to each other. They must successfully synthesize enough scatol at the National Winter Training Camp. 3 days later, Li Zheng finally returned home, and managed to sleep a sound sleep without any talk of girls or luck. In his dreams, he prayed that he wouldn't have to share a room with Shi Yang during the camp. The next morning, Li Zheng didn't wake up until after 9 o'clock, and without any teachers to manage him at that moment, he decided to take another day off and study at home. After getting things in order, it was time for a routine check. It must be said, experiments had opened up a whole new door for learning chemistry. After 3 days of intense immersion, his chemistry score had reached an alarming 286. Even more delightful was that experiments could only be done at a regular pace, so he had accumulated over 200 hours of vitality value during these days. With the residual heat from the experiment breakthrough, it was time to tackle the national decision-making materials. With the talents of chemical meditation and chemical frenzy, he faced books that involved complex experiments and some tricky ones, like analytical chemistry, the art of writing organic reaction mechanisms, organic, and organic synthesis segmentation method. Li Zheng only hoped that he could take his time getting through them, to savor the challenge a bit more. Unfortunately, wishes don't always come true. He chewed through them all in just 2 hours. With the remaining time, he could only go at a normal pace, working through a few sets of theoretical questions from past national decisions. That night, Li Zheng went to bed early, as the provincial team training was starting the next day, and being in good spirits was important. Unlike before, this training coincided with the Golden Autumn Camp, and the location remained the G University Chemistry Institute. If one were to register for the Golden Autumn Camp, their performance at the training would also count as part of the evaluation for the camp. Which is to say, those who placed at the top in the training would not only be included in the provincial team roster, they also had a great chance of signing with G University ahead of time. With this opportunity, many fellow students and teachers sent their blessings ahead of time. Tang's Haifei, sleep early, good luck, and make a great impression. It's not like I want to mentor a G University student on my first time as a class teacher. Li Zheng, drink more hot water, and wash your feet often. Tang's Haifei, you've grown bold, hey. Daring to joke with the principal now, are we? Yu Hong, Li Zheng, I normally don't advocate putting pressure on you, but the principal keeps pressuring me. As the sole hope of Lake Ying, I wish you keep your word and succeed rapidly. Yu Hong, by the way, the head of the training camp is teacher Zhou Yi, the vice dean of the G University Chemistry Institute. He's one of the best teachers in the country when it comes to teaching, particularly pay attention to his questions about organic ring formation reactions. Li Zheng, okay, thank you, teacher Yu. Also, I have some receipts here. Yu Hong, it's getting late, rest well. Zhang Xiok, master, when you're not here, it's like the classroom has no soul, and I'm so bored. Li Zheng, you must be hoping for a chance to relax, right? Zhang Xiok, no, I want to study, I feel I can get into a better school. Li Zheng, then wait a moment, I'll send you a few sets of exercises. Zhang Xiok, okay, I'll finish them and give them to you on Monday. Li Zheng, this behavior of yours, I'm not used to it. Zhang Xiok, afraid of being surpassed, hey. Li Zheng, you're thinking too much, there's at least a gap of 50 Zhang Qinghuas between us. Zhang Qinghua, well, everyone is encouraging you, let me say something disappointing. There's always someone better, setbacks are inevitable, so adjust your mindset quickly. Don't linger in low spirits for too long. The concept of detachment is hard, just maintain a normal heart. Li Zheng, thanks for caring, I'm very happy. By the way, how has Lin Yujing been these past few days? Zhang Qinghua, why must you ask me? Li Zheng, you're trustworthy. Zhang Qinghua, alright then, she also took leave, seems like she's studying college-level physics at home. Li Zheng, good, then I'll give her another month. Su Mensi, I wanted to cheer you on in person, but since you're not here, then fight on. Li Zheng, thank you, Teacher Mensi, I'm liking chemistry more and more. Su Mensi, ha! Isn't thinking about reaction processes fun? Li Zheng, yes, especially organic, the ring formation is just too exhilarating. Su Mensi, that's what you mean, right. Li Zheng, like 3-methylindole, it's really troublesome to synthesize, you know phenylhydrazine, right? Su Mensi, arg, don't let sleep be disturbed, keep fighting. Besides these, Xiao Bixia, Lu Xin, Xiao Sheng, and Hu Chunmei also sent their wishes for success. Of course, the truly lively place was the study sharing group Li Zheng had set up when selling textbooks before. Now, there were nearly 200 alumni in there, and even the junior high section was getting involved. The group name had been changed to something like Worshipping Li Zheng Base. Everyone's group nickname also started to take on a demonic nature. I've completely lost it, tomorrow God Li heads out to the provincial team, if anyone has something to say, speak now. Li Zheng's eyes widened at the sight of the husky avatar. Wasn't that Zhang Xiaoke? Responses quickly flooded in. God Li is awesome. If you make it to the national finals I'll buy 20 more textbooks. It's been days since God Li posted a question, I'm suffering. Sigh, addicted to chemistry and ignoring us. This made Li Zheng itch to do something. Li Zheng, it's the first time I've seen such a request, I'll oblige. Li Zheng, Complete Solutions to Middle School Textbooks, 29 volumes, High School Entrance Exam Review Lecture Notes Universal Use Book, 5.3 Problem King, High School Entrance Exam Aid for Mathematics, Physics, Chemistry, Biology, High School Physics Essential Problem Types 1000 Examples. I was wrong, God Li. I won't dare again. I've completely lost it, Master, if you snatch a national gold. Come back as top 10 in the country, and I'll buy everything you mentioned above. Holy shit, worthy of Xiaoke's grandma. Can't afford to mess with that. Li Zheng, I didn't have such high goals originally, but for you, I'm willing to fight for it. I've completely lost it, what about, top 5, can we? Li Zheng, start saving up. If you buy all the stuff mentioned above, you might be able to buy a car. I've completely lost it, let's negotiate some more. Meanwhile, the Dragon Pearl group was also brimming with anticipation. However, their discussion was more utilitarian, mainly guessing how many contracts would be offered this time for the training camp. The group owner, Ou Xingzhou, was showing off his experience from previous years, and Shi Yang mentioned in the middle that he had a stomachache and couldn't chat anymore, ending the conversation there. Li Zheng then put his phone down and started to toss and turn. He continued to do so until around 10 o'clock and still hadn't fallen asleep. His mind wasn't very calm. Even though he wasn't nervous at all, it was strange. While tossing and turning, he kept picking up his phone to check if he had missed any well wishes. During this time, Wang Cai kept jumping on the bed and wandering around, probably because he hadn't been petted for several days and was getting itchy. Li Zheng thus fell into a cycle of turning over, going to the bathroom, petting the cat. Until 11 o'clock, he was still holding Wang Cai and spacing out. Thump thump thump. Suddenly, his phone rang. Li Zheng instantly threw Wang Cai 5 meters away and grabbed his phone. Lin Yujing. Li Zheng's mouth twitched upward. Then he took 3 minutes and 40 seconds before replying. Li Zheng, you woke me up. Li Zheng, why are you bothering me so late, trying to jinx my chance at making the provincial team? Lin Yujing. Li Zheng, I know you've been taking leave for the past few days to self-study physics at home. Lin Yujing, fierce. Lin Yujing, I heard there might be a chance to sign with the Chemistry Institute. Li Zheng, yet. Lin Yujing. Li Zheng, What, are you jealous? If you want to come, just say it. It might still be possible. Lin Yujing, hate chemistry, covers face crying. Lin Yujing, if you could sign, would you? Li Zheng, G University is indeed a good school, and chemistry is a leading subject there. Lin Yujing, to sign, or not to sign? Fierce. Li Zheng, why, do you care about this a lot? Lin Yujing, whistling. Lin Yujing, just asking. Li Zheng, I'll decide when the time comes. I'm going to sleep now, don't disturb me. Lin Yujing, didn't you dislike chemistry? Li Zheng, suddenly I kind of like it. Lin Yujing, you big pig trotter. Trash trash trash. Lin Yujing, I hope you score 0 on the experiments. Lin Yujing, go to sleep. After bantering with Lin Yujing, Li Zheng put down his phone and finally felt comfortable enough to start feeling sleepy. Should he go to G University or Jinghua in the end? Should he go to the School of Physics or the Chemistry Institute? Ah, what a headache! Chapter 140. On the way, he used his own understanding to provide a brief overview of the situation at various universities and the future development of various majors, while also reminding Li Zheng to be cautious if he received any contracts, as many contain exclusivity clauses. Of course, in the end, it still depended on what Li Zheng's goals were. Amidst the laughter and conversation, the car entered Zhongwenkan Street, with just 1 kilometer left to go. Li Yi gripped the steering wheel, his expression calm. It was as if he wasn't talking to someone else but was conversing with himself. That's the situation in our country. If one wants to stand out and make a lot of money, naturally, they should choose a major with strong market demand. If one doesn't care about all that and rejects measuring their worth by money, but instead pursues the values they believe in their heart, then they should follow their heart. Two paths, either one can bring rewards, and both will have their regrets. Indeed, there is a progression in history, and industries will have their booms and busts. Even your understanding of the world will change, perhaps what you wager your life on today will just be a joke tomorrow. All your mom and I can do is to give you a wider range of choices. As for how to choose, that's up to you. As the car gradually slowed down and finally came to a stop at the side of the road, Li Yi turned his head. Dad can only take you this far. Li Yi sighed deeply and smiled as he stroked Li Zheng's hair. Go on your own path, son. Li Zheng just waved his hand, gritted his teeth while feeling goosebumps, and opened the car door. Don't mess up my hair. Hey, why don't you shave it back to a buzz cut? Li Yi joked with a naive laugh, caring so much about appearance. Are you trying to pursue everything at once? What are you talking about? Heh heh. Li Zheng took his luggage and watched old Li leave before he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Through his previous studies in liberal arts, he had his own understanding of old Li's words. Standing out is equivalent to accepting society's judgment on a person's value, measuring it by money and status, finding fulfillment in success through the recognition of others. To realize a dream is to adhere to one's own value judgment, believing that everything one does is worthwhile is enough. The troubling part is that due to society's strong pull and the individual's relative insignificance, as a person grows, these two paths will gradually merge into one. To set personal ideals as standing out. To view earning money as my personal dream. It's like the gravity of everything, akin to the consumption by a black hole, a result that even from a physics perspective, is consistent. It even has a hint of fate. Unless a person, whose idealistic pull is strong enough to resist the whole world. His talent is innate, his efforts 100-fold. He strictly maintains the order of his heart. Unyielding even in the face of a black hole. He refutes all laws with an abnormal brute force, tearing the immense entity of standing out onto the orbit of his ideals. Dad, Mom. Thank you. You've given me the entire Milky Way. As for that black hole, I will face it alone. From the beginning to the end. Li Zheng snapped back to reality with about 20 minutes left until the gathering time. Looking around, he realized there were quite a few parents' cars parked nearby. At the same time, families kept emerging from taxis and walking over from the subway. This training camp had called together about a class's worth of people, from which 13 would be selected for the provincial team. Doubtless, most families harbored this hope but lacked the confidence. With these 20 minutes, parents were anxiously giving their children all sorts of instructions and advice. Li Zheng even overheard a father passing by giving his son tips on how to ingratiate himself with the teachers. That was really overthinking it. To win over the teachers, there was only one way. Good grades. That parent was really teaching nonsense. While Li Zheng was spacing out on the street, suddenly, the sound of an expensive engine approached, and he instinctively stepped aside as a flashy blue Porsche pulled smoothly into the parking spot old Li had just vacated. Li Zheng's brows tensed. The majority of the cars driven by parents here were on the modest side, the most expensive being vehicles around 4 or 500,000. After all, these were families that prioritized learning over flashy displays of wealth. But this one, it must have cost $1 million. In front of G University's sacred gates, to flaunt wealth in this vulgar manner was utterly disgraceful. He really wanted to key it. At that moment, the passenger side window slid down, and the bespectacled man in the driver's seat leaned out and asked with flair, "Friend, have you seen Wushu?" Li Zheng glared, "Oh you. Savior us, just get in and play along with me to see if we can park inside the Chemical Institute." Oh Yu Xingzhou beckoned. "But..." Li Zheng glowered, "how can a high school student drive a car?" "Buddy, I'm almost 19, Oh Yu Xingzhou said as he lifted his hand to show his driver's license. "Any more doubts?" Li Zheng hesitated for a moment before replying, "It's not that I want to ride, it's you asking me to." Oh Yu Xingzhou smiled, flicked a switch on the dashboard, and with a clunk, both the trunk and the passenger side lock popped open. After loading up and getting in the car, Li Zheng realized that Oh Yu Xingzhou hadn't changed his clothes at all, still in a grey shirt and black trousers, looking every bit the forced young talent. Need to think of an excuse to get in. Oh Yu Xingzhou grasped the steering wheel with his right hand and rested his left on the window, inching towards the gate of the Chemical Institute. "Stop the nonsense, hold the steering wheel with both hands," Li Zheng instructed, holding on to the overhead handle on his side. Oh Yu Xingzhou shook his head with a laugh, steadying the wheel with both hands and asked, "Didn't catch sight of Wushu?" "No," Li Zheng replied, "why are you asking me about your classmate?" We're not that close," Oh Yu Xingzhou said as he continued to scan around. After pondering for a moment, Li Zheng suddenly felt a surge of revulsion. "You wouldn't be trying to show off in front of girls with this fancy car, would you?" Li Zheng shook his head in disgust, "Let me out, you've lost all your swagger with me here." No, I was just asking." Oh Yu Xingzhou hurriedly steered the car and pulled up to the gate of the Chemical Institute. "Don't get the wrong idea, I'm just trying to help a fellow load some luggage." Once the car was parked, the security guard quickly approached, signaling with his hand, "Sorry, parents, but outside cars can't enter." "Not a parent," Oh Yu Xingzhou rolled down the window, said casually, "Dean Zhou invited me to give a lecture at the camp." "Dean Zhou invited you?" The guard hesitated, scrutinizing Oh Yu Xingzhou. He looked far too young. But his confidence was imposing. The guard steadied himself and, deciding not to risk offense, asked politely, "Well then, could you please give Dean Zhou a call?" "Oh Yu Xingzhou replied nonchalantly, taking out his phone. Seeing that the guard had turned his attention to another car, he suddenly turned to Li Zheng, his face twitching, his body tensing with nervousness. "So, what do we do now?" Chapter 141. Calm down first. Oh Yu Xingzhou took a deep breath and firmly adjusted his glasses. Zhou Yi is the vice dean of the Chemical Institute, the top person in charge of the training camp, quite famous in the circle. Damn it! I'm even more panicked now. Li Zheng fiddled with the door handle, ready to open it. "I'm the last hope for Lake Ying, don't screw me over." Oh Yu Xingzhou instantly activated the child lock and swallowed, "It's just a small matter, we face the trouble together. Zhou Yi won't hold a grudge over such a trivial thing. That's dishonesty. A question of character, a major taboo." Li Zheng continued to wrestle with the handle, let me out. A character issue, hey. Oh Yu Xingzhou rested his chin and frowned, now that you mention it, I'm starting to panic too. Reverse the car, there's still time to escape. We're blocked by other cars behind us." Oh Yu Xingzhou looked in the rear view mirror, hey, that chubby baby face, looks like it's Dean Zhou. "Quick, let me out. Friend, don't panic." Oh Yu Xingzhou's lips curved up, "Think calmly, since I've already secured my spot, Zhou Yi can't really do anything to me. I'm going to kill you." Li Zheng was about to lose his mind, "Your JJ is small." Right then, the security guard came back again. "Did you get through on your phone?" "Oh, let me try again." Oh Yu Xingzhou instantly regained his composure, casually pressing the phone to his ear. Meanwhile, the car behind couldn't wait anymore and started honking. Just when all seemed lost, a white lab coat suddenly sprang out in the courtyard. Ponytail, very white, 4 eyes glaring. It's the senior. Shen Yun had already been watching this car, as it was too conspicuous. At that moment, upon closer inspection, she also exclaimed. Is that Li Zheng? Hard to tell, is his family really that giving? So, that also means, on the driver's seat. Is it Li Zheng's dad? Shen Yun then glanced at Ou Xingzhou. Looking at that face, she was completely disoriented. Is Father Li perhaps from the entertainment industry, Botox and facelift to return to youth? Well, that's somewhat related to chemistry. Shen Yun quickly adjusted her glasses and walked over, asking the security, what's the problem? Ah, it's Teacher Shen, just in time. The security guard also walked towards Shen Yun. They said Dean Zhou invited them to lecture. Do you know them, Teacher Shen? Oh. Shen Yun squinted her eyes. Turns out it's all about tricking for a parking spot. With that, Shen Yun walked to the driver's side, bent down to look inside, and lifted her glasses. Coming to deliver a lecture, Junior? Li Zheng, in extreme disarray, managed to respond, yes, Senior, I saw there were plenty of parking spaces inside, hee. At the critical moment, Ou Xingzhou stood by, silent. Not daring to utter a word. Shen Yun chuckled lightly, then told the security, he's a camp assistant, my junior, let them in. All right. Li Zheng and Ou Xingzhou saw the gate rising and finally took a deep breath to calm down. After the close call, Ou Xingzhou tried to drive as steadily as possible toward the parking lot, wiped his sweat, and sighed, I still underestimated you. You've got quite the wild way. Quick, stop talking, park. Li Zheng pointed to the parking lot, urging him. Humph, I did a good acting job just now, didn't I? You're just a waste. After hurriedly parking the car, the two were quickly knocked on the window. Shen Yun squinted her eyes, her expression a mix of smile and non-smile. Li Zheng hastily got out of the car, and after expressing his thanks profusely, he didn't forget to lash out, this is an illegal cab, I'm never taking it again. Shen Yun asked, puzzled, hey? Isn't this your family's car? Isn't that your brother? No, my family would never have such a person. Cough. At this point, Ou Xingzhou also got out of the car. As cool as ever, he now tilted his head and became shy, like all students, nice to meet you. I'm also in the training team. Shen Yun was stunned for a moment, then looked him up and down, flipping through the training roster in her hands, which one? My name is Shi Yang, Ou Xingzhou declared confidently. Li Zheng regretfully slapped his forehead. Too difficult. Still, Shi Yang was somewhat better. It's Ou Xingzhou. Li Zheng hurriedly stepped forward, pointing to the roster, this one, the one in 8th place. Shen Yun casually checked it off and glanced at Ou Xingzhou, classmate, mind your behavior, Dean Zhou was right behind you in his car, and I kindly covered for you guys. Ou Xingzhou was instantly at a loss for words. Not until Shen Yun turned to greet Zhou Yi, who had just parked his car, did Ou Xingzhou glance at his senior sister's retreating figure and snort softly. Humph, interesting woman. Meanwhile, Li Zheng had already grabbed his suitcase and walked about 7 or 8 meters away. Hey, friend, wait for me. Ou Xingzhou hurriedly locked his car and chased after him. Stay away, don't let the dean see me with you. Don't panic, that senior sister will keep it a secret for us. No, she won't. On the other side of the parking lot, Zhou Yi had also just locked his car. His parted hair was a bit messy, but his hairline was still firm, and he invariably wore glasses. His face was chubby and very festive, looking like a middle-aged version of a New Year doll. His attire was the standard, unchanging outfit, a white shirt covered by a plush vest and an outer layer of a somewhat wrinkled black suit. He looked like a typical middle-aged intellectual, absent any scholarly aura. At that moment, Zhou Yi also looked far toward those two Porsche young men. Only after Shen Yun approached did he ask, what are those two doing? Two of the students from the training, Shen Yun giggled, one of them is Li Zheng, who I've mentioned to you. Is the other one Shi Yang? No, it's Ou Xingzhou. Shen Yun opened the roster, a senior from Rendezvous, according to the records, he's already been admitted to our university. Yaha. Zhou Yi raised an eyebrow and smiled, admitted, hey? Just here to make an accomplishment, right? Ah, I don't know about that. It surely is, gathering dragon balls and all, I know all about it. Zhou Yi squinted towards the two, chuckling, which one is Ou Xing Zhou? I'm gonna let him taste the consequences of treating me like a dragon ball. Ah, this. Shen Yun covered her mouth as she laughed, the more handsome one is Li Zheng, and the one next to him is Ou Xing Zhou. Zhou Yi adjusted his glasses, squinting even more tightly. These two kids, one wearing glasses, the other not. Obviously, the one with glasses studies better and is more handsome. So the one not wearing glasses is that stinky kid surnamed OU. Already admitted through other competitions, yet treating my camp like a venue for achievement hunting, like collecting dragon balls. Well, very well. Hey, got it. Zhou Yi smirked, organize them, I'll throw together some special questions just for Ou Xing Zhou. Wow, lucky OU, haha. Shen Yun was all smiles, reveling in the schadenfreude. Chapter 142. Dean Zhou looks so festive when he runs, Li Zheng said with a sigh of relief. He doesn't seem like the petty type who would make things difficult for students. Festive. Ou Xing Zhou sneered. You're wrong, my friend. Zhou Yi has a nickname Zhou Chenghuan. What does that mean? You know what a cyclization reaction is, right? It's when chemical bonds form a ring and close into a cycle. Yeah, in organic chemistry, turning a chain into a ring is a very interesting process. Ha, that's because you haven't done Zhou Chenjuan's problems yet, Ou Xing Zhou pursed his lips. Remember, he's a cyclization fanatic. He has catchphrases like everything can cyclize, the ring is the most beautiful, cyclize. Form a big cycle, and that's good, very cyclizing. And so on. Li Zheng clapped his hands together and exclaimed, that's brilliant, the very concept of cyclizing is clever. Hehe, you're still too young, Ou Xing Zhou waved his hand with a smile but remained silent. Stay naive, you'll be cycling soon enough anyway. Li Zheng chuckled, what's the rush, let's cycle together. Ou Xing Zhou shivered upon hearing this and stammered, don't talk nonsense. As a chem competition student, don't casually say you want to cycle with someone. You should think about that kind of question by yourself, Ou Xing Zhou warned. Anyway, it's a very strong hint, especially when said by a man to another man. After giving it a bit of thought, Li Zheng seemed to understand and cursed immediately, go to hell, I wouldn't cycle with you even if I was going to cycle. Ha, I haven't even said anything, and you're already cursing me. Just as Li Zheng was about to retort, he heard a cool female voice. You're early. Looking up, Wu Shu was walking toward them, pulling a black suitcase. Ou Xing Zhou instantly turned his head away, trying to appear as cold as possible, There's a very tasteful car in the parking lot, no idea whose it is. But as if Wu Shu hadn't heard, she naturally moved next to Li Zheng, using him to block Ou Xing Zhou just like during a preliminary competition exam. Morning, Li Zheng. Morning, Li Zheng smiled. All hail the Queen of Physics. Wu Shu laughed behind her hand, you're the first one who's dared to say that offline. Meanwhile, Ou Xing Zhou quickly took out his phone, while putting himself on mute he said, that pronunciation was too perfect, have you been practicing at home? Only you would do something that boring. Li Zheng looked around, not seeing Shi Yang, and picked up his phone too, you guys chat, I'll ask brother Shi where he's at. However, the two people next to him didn't chat. One started memorizing flashcards, and the other put on headphones to listen to a lecture. Li Zheng felt quite ashamed. But soon, he saw something even more embarrassing. He was about to send Shi Yang a text message but first came across Shi Yang's latest WeChat moments. The post was from last night at 11 p.m., showing the night view of Panlong Road Proctology Hospital, with the caption below. Not sure if it's a microbial imbalance or an elemental rampage, but either way, I have a bad feeling. Li Zheng only found out after asking that this awesome dude had felt off since eating at a buffet hotpot on Thursday evening, but his appetite had not waned at all, in fact, it had been ferocious. The next day, he even took his parents for another round at the buffet, opting for the spiciest broth, which ultimately led to acute enteritis. He vomited and got diarrhea so severely that he ended up being hospitalized overnight. Now, let alone conducting experiments, he hardly had the strength to hold chopsticks. All he could do was focus on treatment, hoping to at least make it to the experimental examination in the end. Upon hearing about Shi Yang's exploits, Wu Shu laughed as he took off his headphones. No worries, Shi Yang is so outstanding that he'll have his spot even if he can't make it. Ha, Zhou Chenghuan hasn't even seen Shi Yang do an experiment. Yu Xingzhou closed his vocabulary book with a sneer, and from what I've observed, many parents just live nearby to keep an eye on the training and signing situations at all times. If someone gets a national finals spot without attending the training, these parents would surely cause an uproar. With that, Yu Xingzhou adjusted his glasses and flashed a wicked smile. Your thinking is still too naive. Makes sense, Wu Shu nodded, chin in hand. Too bad I don't have a Porsche to drive over. Yu Xingzhou shivered. Who are you targeting? I can't understand at all. Li Zheng, don't follow his lead, Wu Shu said, patting Li Zheng's shoulder with a sigh of resignation. Fine, wearing your belt so high, but to flaunt your car keys so visibly, this demolition upstart punk aesthetic, you know how to say that in English. Demolition upstart punk. Li Zheng enunciated clearly. Wu Shu smiled and turned to Yu Xingzhou. See, Li Zheng's English is the real deal. Only you would practice such pointless things at home. Suddenly. I feel like going for a walk. Yu Xingzhou quickly untucked his shirt, covering the high-waisted belt, and walked away abruptly. About his belt, I've always held back from saying anything. You're harsh, Li Zheng sighed. All right, at least he's gone. Wu Shu's face instantly turned stern. Quick, give me some information about Shi Yang. Hey! Didn't you train with him? Wu Shu patted his suitcase, a slight smirk on his face. I've been preparing seriously lately, I don't want to lose to anyone. Oh! Li Zheng pursed his lips, sizing up Wu Shu. I admit you and Xingzhou have great talent, but to think you can challenge the chemical realm of the brother Li and Shi duo in such a short time is quite ambitious. Ha! Suddenly so confident. Wu Shu snorted with amusement. I'm not asking for anything that important, just tell me roughly about Shi Yang's level, I'll give you crucial information as well, even lend you a calculator. Li Zheng's eyes widened. I really forgot to buy a calculator. Come on, spill it. Well, about Shi Yang's level. Li Zheng sighed. Chemistry-wise, I believe he's already at the level of a graduate school graduate, especially in terms of experimental skills and thought processes, so strong I'm lost for words. It's not just talk then, Wu Shu said with a grave face, I really need to cram for the experiments. Let's cram together. Fine, I'll share the information with you. Wu Shu leaned in close to Li Zheng, whispering importantly, in Dean Zhou's camp, Cheng Huan is crucial, making more rings can score you higher points. This seems like no secret at all, Li Zheng couldn't help but comment, your intel is too Mars. Ha! Isn't the word Mars itself Mars? Forget it, Li Zheng waved his hand dismissively, everything's a passing cloud. You win. Wu Shu shivered, eyes closed, and spoke tremblingly, I can't out-joke you with old jokes. Li Zheng scoffed, much obliged, I've also unleashed the primordial powers within me. Enough, spare me. Ha ha ha. Wu Shu laughed wildly, arms crossed, begging for mercy, I can't stand this. Chapter 143. Ah, this is so embarrassing. Wu Shu couldn't hold back anymore, doubled over with laughter, stop, please stop, ha ha ha. How could he stop, just like having learned how to tickle, how could he possibly stop? Wow, my brother's amazing, Li Zheng rubbed his hands together. Haha, that's enough now. Bro doesn't live on bread alone, he thrives on loneliness. Okay, please, I'm dying here, ha ha ha. Li Zheng was having fun with old jokes, but he didn't know. The 40 or so bespectacled guys who had come to gather were already eyeing him fiercely, their eyes bloodshot. The only girl in the camp, officially recognized by all the top students as the physics queen. How did this kid mess her up like this? The queen has collapsed. But to be fair, to tell the truth, they wanted to join in too. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't think of such old jokes. About 10 minutes later, under the organization of Shen Yun and her 2 seniors, all the students attending the training had gathered, with Shen Yun calling the roll and briefly describing the training process. Except for Wu Shu, who was half lying on her suitcase, laughing foolishly from time to time, everyone else stood straight up. The training content this time was mainly experiments, totaling 4 days, with an experimental exam on the afternoon of the fourth day. Combined with preliminary theoretical exam results, the top 13 students would be selected for the provincial team to represent Jiaxing in the National Chemistry Olympics at the beginning of December. Students who registered for the Golden Autumn Camp would stay an extra day after the training for an additional theoretical assessment. It's worth mentioning that the Vice Dean of the Chemical Institute, Zhou Yi, would pay close attention to every student throughout, submitting his recommendations to the admissions office based on their performance. Li Zheng learned from everyone's casual conversations that Zhou Yi was very famous within the circle, different from other professors who were low-key. He was a scholar who focused on teaching. For the past 5 years, almost all of the Chem Institute's competition places had been single-handedly decided by him. Having such immense authority showed that Zhou Yi was trusted by everyone, top to bottom, inside and out. Such a fair and talented scholar is unlikely to hold a grudge over the Porsche incident. After understanding the general arrangement, the students placed their luggage at a designated spot and then headed to the Chemical Institute's small auditorium with their backpacks to attend the opening ceremony of the training. Although there were only about 50 people in the entire auditorium, as soon as Zhou Yi took the stage, he was still met with thunderous applause. Cheng Huan. Cheng Dewan. Teacher Zhou, I want to Cheng Huan. Zhou Yi himself wasn't very serious either, facing the students' calls, he held the microphone and laughed, okay, don't rush, in 4 days, I guarantee you will Cheng Huan, if you don't Cheng Huan, I will Cheng Huan. In a harmonious atmosphere, Zhou Yi went completely off script and spoke as if he were taking a stroll. Let me tell you a true joke first. Many students have had this thought process. When studying for chem competitions, my dream is to get into the Evolution Institute and win a Nobel Prize. After successfully entering the Chemical Institute, I'm set at the Chemical Institute, I just spend every day thinking about how to transfer to another department. Amidst laughter, Zhou Yi didn't stop. Also, here's an even more realistic joke. In RG University's math department, Teacher Wei greets the freshmen with this during their first lesson. Our math department's graduation rate has always been the second lowest in the entire university, so you guys need to work hard to change this historical fact. However, don't worry about slipping because the last place is definitely reserved for the Chemical Institute. Amid more laughter, Li Zheng sat proudly, forcibly twisting his face in disdain. It turns out the Chemical Institute's cold jokes are actually a series. If the dean is this droll, it's no surprise the senior sister is too. However, Li Zheng didn't know that he had already been targeted. Hey! Zhou Yi's eyes brightened, he gestured at Li Zheng, based on your expression, do you think my jokes are too cold, not realistic enough? Li Zheng and the people around him looked around blankly, trying to see who was being so arrogant. Zhou Yi laughed and said, stop looking, it's you, the only student not wearing glasses. The target was clear in an instant. Li Zheng struggled to raise his hand and touched his eye socket, then looked to his left at Ou Xingzhou, just wanting to borrow a pair of glasses. Ou Xingzhou immediately dodged. At the same time, Li Zheng also felt a chill shooting from the stage. Looking at the smiling dean, Li Zheng's understanding of society matured a bit more. I thought you were someone with great tolerance. How could you be so petty? Was it just because I didn't laugh at the joke? Li Zheng hastily employed his emotional intelligence and laughed generously, haha, that's really funny, Zhou, too real ha. Dead silence. His hypocrisy enraged both gods and men. Zhou Yi looked at Li Zheng, his smile growing more and more like a chubby doll. No worries, for a student who is exceptionally good at chemistry, these jokes indeed do not hold. Regardless, I really admire your attitude, young man. You've got spirit, and that's perfect, Zhou Yi said with a raised eyebrow and a smile, since that's the case, my lecture probably isn't suitable for you. Instead of wasting time, why don't we? He said and turned to Shen Yun, like this, Shen, I just happen to have a problem in my bag. Take it out and let this student solve it. It's a simple question. By the time I've finished speaking, he should have solved it too. Shen Yun, who was sitting in the front row, also widened her eyes and desperately signaled Zhou Yi. You've got the wrong person, Dean, this isn't Ou Xingzhou. This kid is a good junior. He didn't treat you like a punching bag. However, Li Zheng was exceptionally honest and had already picked up his pencil case and stood up. The dean might be petty, yet frightening. But he actually challenged me with a problem. Dean, you've hit iron. In this way, under the sympathetic gazes of all the members, Li Zheng walked alone to a table beside the auditorium and began solving problems. Shen Yun stood by his side, wanting to remind him, but was commanded by Zhou Yi to go prepare in the teaching laboratory. All she could do was wish him well and leave, disheartened. Zhou Yi's lecture was still ongoing, but the only thought in Li Zheng's mind was Cheng Huan, big rings. Zhou Yi's problem, Cheng Huan is correct. But as soon as he reviewed the problem, he vomited. The problem was a compound called, plus, nicotamarin A. And it came with a structural diagram. It was a diagram of countless hexagons accumulated and stacked together. In addition, there were many strangely shaped chains around the edges. The entire structure looked like a rotten beehive. This was no longer an issue of big rings or small rings. This was a chain of iron rings. Question 1. Please describe how many rings are in this class of alkaloids and how they are formed. Seeing this question and then that chain of iron rings, Li Zheng felt his head was going to split apart. Chapter 144. The second question, using the segmentation method for retrosynthetic analysis, please provide retrosynthetic analysis. Li Zheng's eyes widened. Only then did he understand. This question wasn't about forming a ring. It was about reverse ring formation. Ring segmentation. It involved segmenting a tremendously complex magic ring into several separate large rings, then dividing the large rings into smaller rings, and so forth, until finding sufficiently simple and common starting materials. Comparing it to cooking, it's akin to giving a chef a finished dish to taste and asking him to deduce the recipe. It was ingenious. But this was already a graduate-level organic chemistry problem. Even the ICO international competition might not delve this deep. Even Li Zheng, who had prepared extensively, was rather flustered by such a demonic magic ring. Of course, as much as he was flustered, he was equally excited. If it were Shi Yang facing this problem, what would his thoughts be? Upon reflection, this magic ring was indeed terrifying. But the knowledge required to solve it didn't exceed the outline of the finals. The most critical organic synthesis segmentation and organic synthesis route design, were subjects he had just tackled, which he occasionally discussed with Shi Yang as well. Theoretically, he already possessed all the foundational knowledge needed to solve this problem. However, facing a question of this level, he still lacked experience and training. It was like a junior apprentice chef who indeed had mastered every cooking technique. But if thrown the task of deducing recipes from tasting an extravagant imperial feast, it was still too tough. Li Zheng involuntarily looked towards Zhou Yi on the stage. Zhou Yi noticed him and immediately smiled. No worries, student, if you can't continue, just come back and listen carefully. Competing in chemistry might not be as intense as in math and physics, but winning a gold medal isn't that easy either. The trainees were bewildered by Zhou Yi's words. What did math and physics competitions have to do with this? Yu Xingzhou, however, glared and looked down. Seemed like this chubby kid was pretty bothered by the issue of accumulating Dragon Balls. Could it be? He then turned to look at Li Zheng, feeling somewhat guilty. Sorry, my friend. Li Zheng didn't say much and quickly returned to his place. However, he didn't sit down, but picked up his backpack. He pulled out 2 large empty notebooks and then walked back to his desk. Everyone then realized. He had just come back to get scratch paper. Amidst the exclamations, Zhou Yi was not only unangered but rather excited. Good, that's the spirit. Zhou Yi clutched the microphone, spirited and eloquent. That leads to what I was about to say next. Chemistry is like life. There are no bonds that can't be broken, only our knowledge is insufficient. There are no rings that can't be formed, only our efforts are lacking. Every new reaction is a new vista. Every intermediate is part of our hidden journey. Every process is reversible. Only by pressing forward can we avoid returning to the start. The students undoubtedly applauded once more. It was all just motivational talk. But when combined with chemistry, it suddenly turned a bit demonic. Meanwhile, Li Zheng, undoubtedly, had already engaged his ultimate 112 times speed. Zhou Chenghuan. If you show no kindness, don't blame me for my ruthlessness. Clearly, his current experience and knowledge were insufficient to decipher this demonic ring. So he decided to test them one by one, cutting one bond after another. He would tackle frying, deep frying, boiling, braising, steaming, stewing, simmering one by one. Fighting fire with fire. Bond, come at me. Half an hour later, Zhou Yi's speech was nearing its end. Although Li Zheng hadn't listened to it, it was actually quite spectacular. The first half entailed motivational and demotivational talks, revealing the sweet and bitter aspects of engaging in chemistry, paired with his personal understanding of rings, all resonating with a demonic eloquence throughout. During the latter part, he carefully explained the selection rules for joining the provincial team and signing with G University, making sure every student knew how to achieve their goals. He occasionally glanced at Li Zheng, who was fervently solving problems, and seeing Li Zheng's deep involvement without giving up, he admired it greatly. It's not just chemistry, everything needs this kind of relentlessness. In the end, Zhou Yi even deliberately slowed down the pace of his speech to give Li Zheng a bit more time. By this time, minor annoyances like collecting Dragon Balls or random parking were long forgotten. This problem could not be addressed without spending several years studying organic chemistry at a top chemical institute. If Ou Xingzhou could explain the structure of the ring clearly, that would be quite an achievement. Li Zheng had already entered demonization. This magic ring had been segmented countless times like nesting kaleidoscopes. In his chemical meditation micro-world, he had simulated countless possibilities. Though it had been only a mere half-hour in real time. By now, he had reached a speed of 112 times. Plus 100% chemical fervor, and an extra 50% bonus from entering the demonization state with Earth Demon. This brief half-hour equaled a tough 140 hours. Even Li Zheng had never been so obsessed before. Until his eyes widened. He did it. 5 steps. Break 10 bonds. Finally split into 3 bizarre things. They were all bizarre, but the heart of each was still a ring. A 6-membered ring, a 5-membered ring, and a 3-membered ring. While it wasn't sure that these 3 bizarre things could be sourced as raw materials, every step was feasible in his chemical meditation. Finally, with a snap, the ring was formed, and the pen fell. Li Zheng slumped into his chair as if he had just fought an endless war. Or as if he had just had a fulfilling, drenching dream. At this point, no matter what he looked at, it all appeared as rings. On the stage, when Zhou Yi saw Li Zheng stop writing, he gave his final remarks and concluded. Whether it's the current training or future university life, please remember, every competition is not an internal one but an external one. What you really should consider is, how to surpass the academic level outside. Being stronger than me doesn't equal strength. Only when our entire Chinese chemical community is stronger can you truly be considered strong. Thank you all. With that, Zhou Yi bowed respectfully to the students below. All the students stood up unconsciously, and the applause thundered. For them, this bow was overwhelming. Li Zheng too had just emerged from the world of rings. Weren't these the same words that Shi Yang had once said? In the end, we're all our own people. If we are all rings, why the rush to denigrate others? Zhou Yi also looked at Li Zheng, his eyes full of ring essence, and quickly left the stage. Hold on for a couple of minutes, everyone, let me see how well this ring segmentation worked out. Li Zheng also stood up, picked up his answer sheet, and approached Zhou Yi, his eyes just as full of ring essence as the dean's. Teacher Zhou, this problem was really thrilling. Zhou Yi just smiled, he was rather incredulous, sure that the kid was just putting on an act again. Until he took the answer sheet. 5 steps, 6 diagrams, large rings nested within small ones, they looked legitimate. Zhou Yi couldn't help but seriously contemplate it, mumbling as he analyzed. This works. This works, this really forms a ring. Can this even form a ring? This doesn't form a ring. A very imaginative ring. Good ring. Chapter 145. The solution to this problem isn't actually unique. Whatever method you use, as long as you can synthesize this macro cycle with a few reagents, that's fine. Li Zheng's answer, naturally, is different from the most standard laboratory synthetic route currently practiced. But theoretically, it makes sense. Every bond cut was very precise. Every ring formed was very beautiful. The classmates watching the excited Zhou Yi only felt fear. How many times did teacher Zhou mention ring formation? How many rings are in this problem, exactly? That guy's name is Li Zheng, right? 2 minutes later, Zhou Yi slapped his thigh. This ring can be formed. With that, he patted Li Zheng's shoulder vigorously. Very good, Ou Xingzhou, you really understand rings. Boom, the whole room erupted. Part of the surprise was at Zhou Yi's praise. For someone to be acknowledged by Zhou Chenghuan as understanding rings, that person must be a ring wizard for sure. From the looks of it, the monster that Lei Qing produced could very well be deeper than Cobalt God. The other part of the surprise was because of Ou Xingzhou. Wu Shu also reacted, did Dean Zhou get the wrong person? SHH. Ou Xingzhou immediately played it cool, keep it low key, low key. Unfortunately, Ou Xingzhou had many enemies. A student from Rendafu immediately raised his hand, Teacher Zhou, you've mistaken the person, this is the real Ou Xingzhou. Oh. Zhou Yi followed the student's pointing hand, and only then did he see the no longer concealable Ou Xingzhou, who also became noticeably embarrassed. Ah, no worries, Ou Xingzhou, you come here too, there's still the problem to be solved. Ah. Teacher Zhou. Li Zheng then also caught on. Damn it. He'd been tricked all along. No way was he going to let this slide. Come here, come here. Li Zheng beckoned resentfully, don't make me the only one forming rings. Ou Xingzhou originally wanted to keep bluffing, but his enemies pushed him forward the whole way, showing that character indeed matters. Meanwhile, Zhou Yi scrutinized Li Zheng's answer sheet and asked, so, you're the legendary Shi Yang, right? Li Zheng felt like crying but had no tears, was his name that forgettable? Before he could speak, Zhou Yi slapped his forehead and remembered what Shen Yun had said. No, that's not right, got muddled there, you are Li Zheng. Yes, Li Zheng. Zhou Yi adjusted his glasses and took a closer look, were it not for you, I wouldn't even know Lei Qing had a middle school, and you emerged from such an environment through self-study, impressive. Not exactly self-study, our chemistry teacher is very good. Hey, I know you Hong, Zhou Yi chuckled with a grin, giving Li Zheng another pat, I'll use this answer sheet of yours first, as a teaching reference. I'll give it back to you later. No need, you keep it. Alright, alright. Zhou Yi quickly folded the answer sheet and then asked, how long have you been studying organic chemistry? Li Zheng thought for a moment and replied, quite a while. Don't be modest. Being able to come up with an approach in just half an hour is something many graduate students can't manage. Zhou Yi tapped his own head, usually, only those who have seen a lot of rings can rapidly come up with retrosynthetic analysis. You couldn't have seen that many even if you self-studied. I have to say, you're really suited for chemistry. You're flattering me, Li Zheng said with a silly smile, shaking his head, actually, I learned a lot from Shi Yang. He's much better than me. Oh, don't say that, Zhou Yi became even more animated. One prodigy is already impressive, but now there are two? Is Jing playing the double ring game with me this year? Zhou Yi asked eagerly, do you know when Shi Yang might come? I'm not sure, not even certain if he can come, Li Zheng answered truthfully, but please believe me, Shi Yang is definitely better than me, don't eliminate him just because he's absent. Understood, I will consider your opinion, Zhou Yi didn't say much, but handed the clean question sheet to Ou Xingzhou, who was dawdling over, Ou Xingzhou, right? Take your time, don't rush. Okay. Ou Xingzhou took the question sheet, his expression immediately becoming animated, this, what the heck is this? Zhou Yi smiled and pressed Ou Xingzhou's left shoulder, guiding him towards the seat, Li Zheng could do it, so can you. Teacher Zhou is right, Li Zheng also pushed on Ou Xingzhou's right shoulder, pressing him down firmly, there's no ring that can't be formed, just not enough effort. Ou Xingzhou didn't dare look at that terrifying thing again, I was wrong, Teacher Zhou, I was wrong, Li Zheng. I haven't even read segmentation method and retrosynthetic analysis yet. Coincidentally, I have them, Li Zheng said with a cold laugh, turning his head to pull out two thick books from his bag and slamming them onto the table, moral character is important, friend. Ou Xingzhou could only pick up his pencil case pityingly, then. I'll give it a try. Zhou Yi then smiled, alright, take it back with you. It's time to switch classrooms, I'll teach you organic chemistry. Thank you, Teacher Zhou. Chemistry competitions aren't easy to win, Zhou Yi patted Ou Xingzhou, still smiling, keep working hard, I'll be watching you. If you're interested, you're also welcome to change your preference to the Chemical Institute. I can help you get in touch with the admissions office. With that, he turned back to organize the other students to head to the classroom. Watching his retreating figure, Li Zheng packed up his pencil case and remarked, Dean Zhou is even more approachable than I imagined. Indeed, Yu Xingzhou was like one who had survived a calamity. He quickly packed away the question sheet, not daring to look any longer. Dean Zhou started out doing organic research, and made significant contributions in the field of organic ring formation reactions. Eventually, he shifted towards teaching, taking it upon himself to nurture the next generation. He has devoted a lot of effort to teaching and recruiting, putting his own research on hold. Hearing this, Dean Zhou is truly noble. Li Zheng couldn't help but exclaim, to have me repeat the knowledge I've already mastered over and over to others, I doubt I could keep that up. At this moment, Wu Shu also packed up his bag and joined them. It matches what he says, doesn't it? All competition is external. Compared to personal research, Dean Zhou chose to cultivate more talents, giving the collective a strong future. Yeah, seeing someone like Dean Zhou. Li Zheng packed his bag firmly, it's motivating. You're pretty amazing too, said Wu Shu, tugging at the straps of Li Zheng's backpack. Even Zhou Qinzhuan's devilish problems can be solved by you. No choice, Li Zheng laughed, I wanted to keep a low profile, but my ability won't allow it. Wu Shu's face tensed up as he started to tremble uncontrollably. Stop, 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 enough, don't come at me with that. Humph, my modesty is not for Zhou Qinzhuan's sake, sneered Li Zheng. Ha 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 ha, stop it. Wu Shu fled in a fluster. Of course, Li Zheng chased after him. Look, you've shocked all our friends. Please, spare me, ha ha ha. Yu Xingzhou was left alone, frowning silently. How come? It seemed like Li Zheng had unlocked some strange feature in Wu Shu. He didn't have time to ponder further and quickly pulled out his phone to impose a 10-hour mute on Li Zheng. Then he began to search for old jokes. It's just old jokes, who doesn't have them? Chapter 146. Without a doubt, there were many cycles. And the pace was extremely fast, the content highly concentrated. It was almost assumed that everyone was at the level of an undergraduate from a prestigious university. At this time, some with shaky foundations, who had gambled on certain knowledge points and guessed right to win a provincial top spot, gradually began to feel overwhelmed. After all, within the domain of the provincial team selection, the gap between 70 points and 90 points was enormous. Weirdos like Li Zheng, who had devoured all knowledge points, were actually rare. Of course, Li Zheng didn't care about others, he himself was thoroughly enjoying the lecture. Or rather, this was the most enjoyable lecture he had ever attended in his life. The lecture content, nicely on the edge between his known and unknown territories, rushed on wildly like an untamed horse. Not only was it highly efficient and exhilarating, but it also reinforced some previously shaky knowledge points along the way. Such a master's class was truly as precious as gold. As for Zhou Yi himself, he was subconsciously exchanging intense looks with Li Zheng, interacting with him on every question. However, their interaction was the agony of others. Zhou Yi, you understand this cycle, right? Li Zheng, understood. Zhou Yi, good, now let's talk about rubber. The others. In this fast-paced interaction, the speed of the lecture accelerated. In just an hour and a half, Zhou Yi had covered a massive amount of content without even realizing it. At the end of the class, Zhou Yi closed his laptop with a sigh. This year's average level in Jiajing is high. I covered twice the knowledge points in one lecture compared to last year. Li Zheng's face was full of unsated desire. Extend the class, Teacher Zhou, can we have some more on physical organic chemistry? The surrounding students glared at him instantly. Although they were all top students and liked extended classes, this was completely incomprehensible. Tomorrow, there's another class tomorrow. Zhou Yi picked up his bag and waved to the students. I have to check on another venue for the Golden Autumn Camp. This afternoon, you should work well on your experiments, see you tomorrow. Upon Zhou Yi's departure, the students started complaining. The lecture is good, but it's way too fast. Forgot everything else, now my head is full of cycles. To Li Zheng's left and right, Yu Xingzhou and Wu Shu exchanged words as usual. Wu Shu closed his notebook and breezed through his bangs. Too bad, I only understood 80%. Really? Yu Xingzhou snickered, I understood 80.1%. Oh. Li Zheng quickly asked, the Stricker reaction in this antibiotic with a multi-ring system here. Coincidence? Coincidentally, I didn't really get that part either. What about the retrosynthesis of cyanocycline A that the teacher just explained? Suddenly feel like going to the bathroom. Yu Xingzhou grabbed his bag and stood up. See you in the cafeteria. You're quite bad, Wu Shu laughed as he packed his backpack. Teacher Zhou didn't even cover those 2 points just now. Just testing him, Li Zheng muttered. After so many losses, how can he still not be honest? He has a very strong sense of pride, always trying to maintain his genius persona no matter the setting. Wu Shu shook his head, rubbing his neck. There are always bigger fish. He's probably reaching his limit. I guess he won't be sleeping tonight. Is it really necessary to go all out like this? Li Zheng asked. Haven't both of you been recommended for admission already? Why still fuss over such irrelevant subjects? The people here have studied chemistry competitions for several more years. How can you catch up in just a few months? Ha, you have the nerve to say that. Wu Shu stood up, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and looked out of the window. He habitually blew a breath at his bangs and said, I don't know about Yu Xingzhou, but for me, chemistry is an extension of physics from a microscopic perspective. I want to try and use chemical concepts to re-examine physics. Perhaps the secrets of quantum are hidden within. Li Zheng's eyes widened. Watching Wu Shu's cool, light laugh and tasting the slow-motion flutter of his hair strands. Academic fortune. It was academic fortune. It came out of nowhere. Detection of academic fortune. Wu Shu, 48. Learning cap, 19. Learning. Plus 0.1. Li Zheng was initially astonished at how vigorous Wu Shu's academic fortune was, but then he realized that what he could learn from him was far less than from Shi Yang. Perhaps because everyone's brains and talents inevitably overlap, acquiring the same thing again wouldn't result in a new improvement. Of course, for now, it was still best to absorb respectfully. Indeed, there is a branch in chemistry called physical chemistry. Li Zheng said as he absorbed, if you really want to say, every chemical reaction is actually a physical process in the microscopic world. Although Li Zheng was merely explaining, his own thoughts also started to unravel along this path. Those bonds and rings of magic, those cuts and joins, the intimacy of elements, the transfer of ionization, aren't they all physical processes? Or rather, these reactions occur based on physical properties. Contrarily, Li Zheng, with his current knowledge of chemistry, re-examined the physics he understood. Seeing that Li Zheng also had some insights, Wu Shu became interested, sat back down, and gestured excitedly. To be precise, a chemical reaction is actually a collection of many quantum processes, but we still can't describe it using quantum mechanics. So, essentially, chemistry is the theory we use to describe how matter reacts on a larger scale. This understanding is brilliant, Li Zheng exclaimed, slamming the table. So, chemistry is just a minor branch of my great physics then. Different things, Wu Shu saw Li Zheng was getting overly enthusiastic and quickly raised his arm to soothe him. The two subjects definitely have important connections, but the current knowledge in physics hasn't reached the point where it can explain all chemical processes, even how mighty quantum mechanics and the theory of relativity are. Newton's classical mechanics is still the foundation we apply. Yes, Li Zheng nodded while organizing his thoughts. Let's go eat, stop thinking for now. Wu Shu stood up and knocked on the table. Those matters are too far off, focus on the present first. Wait. Li Zheng also hurriedly slung his backpack over his shoulders and stood up. Let's have one more round. You think this is stand-up comedy? Come on, one more. No way, Wu Shu defiantly turned his head away, grasping his backpack strap, and moved toward the other students. If you won't, then I certainly will. Li Zheng hurried after him. What's up with you? Teach me some more tricks, he urged. Shut up, don't. Wu Shu covered his mouth with both hands, lowered his head, and hurried along, his cheeks puffed up as if about to explode. Oh my, you're putting a lot of pressure on me, don't you think? Ptaha. Wu Shu couldn't hold back any longer, leaned against the wall, and started pounding it wildly. Enough, will I do if I continue? Ha ha ha, alright, you say another one, just the last one. How could I? Important things must be said 3 times, oh my. Ha ha ha. Eventually, Wu Shu fell to the ground, doubling over with joyous tears in his eyes. Chapter 147. Unlike the laboratories they had visited before, this one was filled with long tables, and the equipment was set up in pairs, sharing a central sink. After an afternoon's immersion, Li Zheng's complexion had grown even rosier. Though the time was short, he had already learned about the 6 points of luck and had grown considerably. Wu Shu simply found a spot, didn't even change into a lab coat, and laid down to sleep immediately. Li Zheng also realized that he had reached his limit with forced absorption, and anything further would just have to come with opportunity. Soon, the teacher in charge of the experimental tutorial, an older man with the same hairstyle as Sun Liang, hurried into the room, followed closely by Shen Yun with her head bowed. It appeared that this was Shen Yun's mentor. The mentor didn't waste words and got right to the point as soon as he was up on the podium. I am your experiment teacher, Hu Zhengguo. Pair up in groups of 2, choose your own partners, choose your own spots. We will officially start the class in 3 minutes. Make the most of the time and try to cover as many experiments as possible. With that, he and Shen Yun began to tidy up the teaching laboratory station. Li Zheng could clearly see that the usually spirited senior, who could joke freely with Vice Dean Zhou Yi, was now silent in front of her mentor, meek like a little rabbit. The atmosphere between master and disciple was really not comfortable. But there was nothing to be done. Famous and approachable authorities like Zhou Yi were a rarity. Most scholars were probably more like teacher Hu Zhengguo in temperament. Li Zheng did not realize, during his covered observation of the teacher, that many had already quietly set their sights on the sleeping Wu Shu. This was their last chance. King Qin's last chance. Over these 2 days, they were supposed to conduct experiments for more than 10 hours. This meant spending 10 hours of close interaction with the same teammate. All the male students present. They had never had such an opportunity in their lives. Not to mention 10 hours, even half an hour would have been a miracle. If not now, then when? Of course, this was just wishful thinking. After all, the ace students present were not to be underestimated. There were really only 3 or 5 people who dared to approach Wu Shu's vicinity for fear of disturbing her sleep and making her angry. As time passed by the minute, more and more male students paired up. The 3 or 5 who were alone were getting anxious. Fortunately, teacher Hu Zhengguo on the podium spoke up for them. What are you doing sleeping at this time? Wu Shu jerked awake, sitting up straight like she had a cramp. Ah! I actually fell asleep. What's your name, and what school are you from? Teacher Hu sternly asked, do you realize how important this training is? Do you know you are wasting everyone's time? Do you know what level of meeting I had to cancel to be here? I'm sorry, teacher. Wu Shu hastily bowed in apology. Name, school. Teacher Hu's questioning did not lessen. Today's performance will be accounted for in the overall evaluation. Teacher Hu. Shen Yun hurried over to intervene. I've finished setting up here, I'll go record her name and student ID, and you can start preparing. Teacher Hu raised his hand to stop Shen Yun, questioning again, name, school. Wu Shu had recovered by then, and looking straight at Teacher Hu, she said, Wu Shu, rendezvous. -5 points. After instructing Shen Yun, Teacher Hu nodded at Wu Shu, I'll be keeping an eye on you as well. Prepare for the experiment. Okay. Wu Shu's face showed no extra emotion, simply shaking her head and blowing a breath of air through her bangs. On the other side, Li Zheng felt both ashamed and annoyed. What was this situation for a deduction? Was he crazy? Besides, her fatigue was all because of me. But just as he was about to go up and argue with Teacher Hu, Shen Yun pressed him back down with a palm. Don't be a martyr. Shen Yun whispered in a very low voice, trust me. He can disqualify you on the spot. Does he have that authority? Actually, no. Ultimately, it would still be up to Zhou Yi, but it would be very troublesome. Just rest for now. Before Li Zheng could respond, Teacher Hu was already looking over, is this Shi Yang or Li Zheng? Shen Yun was startled and hurried back to her mentor's side, Li Zheng. Yes, Yi Yun speaks highly of you, Hu Zhengguo nodded, hurry up and form a team. I will also be watching you. However, you must understand that there are no shortcuts you can take for the current selection. Understood, thank you, teacher. Li Zheng also nodded and walked towards the back row. Hu Zhengguo's words were very clear, it was ultimately he who had Shen Yun coach Li Zheng and Shi Yang, but relying on connections would only go so far, it couldn't possibly affect the selection for the provincial team. Seeing this attitude, he was just a stern mentor after all, not worth getting upset over. On the other side, Ou Xingzhou noticed Wu Shu was struggling, bit the bullet, and stepped forward. He knew Wu Shu all too well, neither of them were really into chem competitions, although they managed to secure their places in Jiajing based on their backgrounds, they were totally clueless about experiments. Now that they had immediately lost 5 points in the experiment, the difficulty of making it into the provincial team list had sharply increased. He had to help her. Although he was determined, Ou Xingzhou was quite a flamboyant character, and he found it somewhat embarrassing to ask to form a team in public. As he hesitated, another short-haired junior from Rendafu had already boldly stepped up. The short-haired thought it through. The goddess's radiance was too dazzling, causing the boys to feel too intimidated to approach her, naturally feeling unworthy, impossible. But perhaps, the goddess had always been longing for nourishment but had never met someone brave enough. Like it or not, it's worth a shot despite the challenges. He was ready with his overtures, approaching within 2 meters to Wu Shu's right, and was about to speak. Ou Xingzhou was alarmed, couldn't hesitate any longer, and hurried forward. "It's not your turn, kid." He finally managed to reach Wu Shu first. As if he could smell the fantasy-like fragrance. Ou Xingzhou shivered. He closed his eyes. It's no good. He still couldn't bring himself to speak. In his desperation, Ou Xingzhou took a few more steps forward and confronted the junior. "Come on, let's team up." "Hey!" The junior was puzzled. "What, you think I'm not good enough?" Ou Xingzhou restrained himself as he adjusted his glasses. "No well." The junior was on the verge of tears. "Damn it, if you don't have the guts, why drag me into this?" Eventually, the two found themselves beside a table, successfully forming a group. After Ou Xingzhou's dazzling series of moves, the situation suddenly became clear. Only one burly senior from Rendafu and a nerdy junior remained. But these two were no help either, even though the situation was clear, they started giving way to each other again. Just then, Li Zhang arrived. "We're a team," Li Zhang declared authoritatively, standing next to Wu Shu. "It's my fault, I'll take responsibility." "You also know." Wu Shu gritted her teeth and muttered, "Don't mess it up again." "Yet, no more messing up." Li Zhang was already limbering up. "The performance later might be considered in the overall evaluation, so I'll guide you where necessary." "Hey, just mixed with Shi Yang for a couple of days and you're getting cocky." "Stop joking around," Li Zhang said seriously, "I won't let you go easily, I want us to advance to the national finals together." "You. It's all for physics," Li Zhang swung his fist, "all hail." "Fine." Wu Shu reluctantly accepted, biting her lip, "You're thinking too much, I'm not that kind of person who needs looking after. But I need your guidance in physics." "Then, let's make it clear, you're the one asking for my help, not the other way around," Wu Shu said, her face tense as she donned her gloves, a hint of red unknowingly swept across her face. "Agreed," Li Zhang swiftly threw on a lab coat. Having often seen old Li wear one, his move was also impressive and imposing. The burly guy and nerdy junior beside him were already stunned. Much more shocked than the first time Shi Yang saw Li Zhang and Shen Yun talking. "Damn it! This gap is quite big." The two exchanged glances, acknowledging each other's plight. At this point, they only had to join hands and form a group. Chapter 148. His style was distinctly different from Zhou Yi's, more rigorous. He went through each step in a detailed and standard manner, unlike Zhou Yi, who would gloss over areas he deemed, only in his mind, obvious. At the same time, it had a sort of by-the-book flavor of rote learning, without much sense of impact. You could say it wasn't much different from self-study. Of course, this wasn't his fault. After all, geniuses like Zhou Chenghuan were hard to come by. With Hu Xingu's pace at present, Li Zhang was naturally feeling a bit drowsy, but he still forced himself to listen attentively, mainly to correct some of the improper practices he had learned from Shi Yang. Just like the neutral gear coasting when learning to drive, with a moderate speed and seeing a red light in the distance, switching to neutral and coasting through with inertia is an operation that saves fuel and effort without harm. However, in a driving test, this operation would result in points being deducted. As an old driver like Shi Yang naturally had many of these clever tricks, not all of them should be emulated, some might be safe under certain circumstances, but not under others. Being a disciple of Shimen, Li Zhang was somewhat of an unorthodox practitioner. Coming back and relearning the rigors of academia wasn't completely fruitless. In 1 hour, the basic experimental routines were explained. After a 10-minute break, Hu Xinggu then had Shen Yun distribute the experimental test papers and materials. Everyone received a test paper along with a small bag of industrial salt mud, with other required reagents having been placed on the common experiment table before class. Confronted with actual test questions, most students were somewhat flustered. Even theoretical experts had pitifully few opportunities to practice experiments in the past. A student with a buzz cut in front raised his hand and said, "Teacher Hu, why don't you guide us through one first?" On the stage, Hu Zhengguo closed his notebook and shook his head with a stern face. "All the knowledge and techniques needed for this experiment were taught to you in the last class. The experiment time is 1.5 hours. I will group you based on the results. Those who pass will attend my advanced experiment class tomorrow, those who don't meet the standards will continue with Yiyun to supplement their basics until they do. You all are top students, and you should be clear that we are selecting the best among the best to represent Jiajing and exchange with top students from all over the country. So a one-size-fits-all approach is not suitable for the current situation. Let me emphasize one more time, you have already been taught all the necessary knowledge and techniques. If your abilities are outstanding enough, even if this is your first experiment, you can achieve results that meet the standards." With that, he glanced at his watch. "The experiment starts now. It's 3 o'clock, and you need to submit your reports before 4:30. Boom, boom, boom. Students dared to make noise but dared not curse. So, this old man was only going to teach the students he favored? The rest were to be left to this half-baked senior? Even more frightening was, what exactly did we learn last class? Some were bewildered, some were angry. Others, however, had already rushed to the common experiment table to grab reagents. Li Zheng and Wu Shu were the first to react, each heading for the reagents needed for the first step. I'll take 50 milliliters of sulfuric acid, that should be enough for both of us. Li Zheng grabbed a bottle labeled with 25% concentration sulfuric acid. Wu Shu smoothly picked up a small bottle with a pale yellow liquid. All right, do I need 40 milliliters of sodium hypochlorite? 25 will suffice. As others were still reading the test paper, the two of them had already poured the salt mud into beakers. Half a minute later, the rest hurried to the experiment table, scrambling for the reagents that the two had already taken. Hu Zhengguo's expression unchanged, he pulled up a chair to sit down, beckoning Shen Yun beside him. It's normal for Li Zheng to react quickly. What's Wu Shu's rank in theory? Shen Yun quickly flipped through the materials. 9th, the best performance from Ren De Fu this year. Is he taught by Sun Liang? Shen Yun's voice softened when she heard the name, not daring to say more. This, I'm not sure. If he's from Ren De Fu, then it must be Sun Liang, Hu Zhengguo said with a sneer. People like Sun Liang, not good enough for the research circle, had to squeeze into the education circle. And once in the education circle, rather than honestly teaching and educating, he focused on competitions, only knowing how to devise clever tricks and shortcuts to teach students, ultimately sending me a bunch of problem-solving machines. Is that so? Shen Yun was used to Hu Zhengguo's rants about Sun Liang, having become accustomed to responding reflexively. According to her senior, it seemed to be related to Hu Zhengguo's romantic troubles in his youth. As for the specifics, nobody knew. After all, that was an absolute taboo topic for Hu Zhengguo, never to be mentioned. It seems that Sun Liang has guessed the questions correctly again this year. Hu Zhengguo cursed enough before shaking his head. Yiyun, I didn't mean to make things difficult for his students, I'm just stating a fact. Don't go around spreading rumors. Won't say, won't say. Shen Yun dared not talk more and hurriedly took out Shi Yang's materials. You rarely have the time, why not take a look at Shi Yang's past grades in advance? His father just sent them. Hu Zhengguo took the materials, flipping through them as he spoke. How is Shi Yang's situation? He's still in the hospital. Dean Zhou's view is that even if he can't make it, we should try to keep a spot reserved for him. Don't add to the confusion. Whether or not to reserve a spot is Zhou Yi's decision. I will give the marks that are due here. Hu Zhengguo put down the materials and said quietly, this selection, with so many parents and people from the system watching. If Shi Yang doesn't even show up and we just send him to the national finals, who will take responsibility if there's an uproar? Yes, but I am confident in Shi Yang's experimental skills. He is truly exceptional, at least not inferior to Li Zheng. I know, I believe you, Hu Zhengguo raised his hand to say, let's not talk about this anymore. Shen Yun's brow furrowed slightly. If two heavyweight teachers both recommended Shi Yang, the Chemical Society would have a reason to accept their suggestion and make an exception to recruit Shi Yang for the national finals. So, she grit her teeth and said, "Teacher Hu, I could produce an assessment report for Shi Yang. You could revise it, and then we both sign it and submit it to the Chemical Society. It should help argue Shi Yang's case." "Absolutely not." Hu Zhengguo glared at Shen Yun, "You just want to avoid bringing trouble upon yourself? In this room, which student doesn't have some family background? If it comes down to it and they investigate, your report will be the end of it." Zhou Yi could just wash his hands of the matter, "But how will you explain yourself? We just need to do our part well and not cause trouble." "All right." Shen Yun reluctantly bowed her head and dared not utter another half-word. For Shi Yang's matter, she had already spoken many good words in front of Zhou Yi. But it seemed now that although Zhou Yi had the intention, having never met Shi Yang, he did not dare to be too decisive. Hu Zhengguo, on the other hand, was keen to protect his own position and forbade her from speaking further on behalf of Shi Yang. If this continued, that chemistry prodigy who boasted of going to Prague to show the whole world his preparation of special substances, he might just end up faltering at the proctology hospital. Shen Yun, being of little influence, could not say much else and merely followed Hu Zhengguo quietly, inspecting the experiments together. Li Zheng, on the other hand, had clarified his experimental thoughts in his mind while heating the solvent. Extracting magnesium sulfate heptahydrate from salt mud. It was less about extracting what was needed and more about filtering out unwanted impurities. After all, in industrial salt mud, besides the target element magnesium, there are various other chemical elements like calcium, iron, aluminum, and manganese. To extract magnesium, the salt mud must first be acidified to form a solution. Then, unwanted substances are chlorinated and hydrolyzed into hydroxides to precipitate as solids, and filtered out sequentially. Eventually, the remaining magnesium is used to crystallize into magnesium sulfate heptahydrate. The process is multifold, but the principle is simple. The core lies in 1-point pH value. In this experiment, each substance to be filtered out precipitates as a solid at different pH values. As long as the theory is solid and you understand the precise pH value at which each substance fully precipitates, the final results should be roughly accurate. However, if someone is new to experimenting, they would most likely follow the steps by the book, not contemplating each reaction and thus not finally adjusting the pH value. Realizing this point, Li Zheng couldn't help but glance at Wu Shu, worrying for her. Wu Shu's progress was somewhat slower, and her movements not as adept, suggesting she hadn't studied experiments extensively. Li Zheng then lowered his voice and said softly, "The pH for the complete precipitation of iron hydroxide is 3.2, aluminum hydroxide." Suddenly, Wu Shu raised her hand, not even looking at Li Zheng, and said indifferently, "I can do it myself." "But you've already had points deducted," Li Zheng said gravely, "Hu Zhengguo allocated very little time, there's no room for mistakes." "I know, and I can do it myself," Wu Shu responded with her head down, carefully stirring the salt mud mixture, her expression colder than usual. "If you keep it up, I'll get angry." Seeing her reaction, Li Zheng finally nodded and returned his focus to his own experiment. This guy, always quick to claim Ou Xingzhou, overvalues his pride. It's a case of the pot calling the kettle black. Meanwhile, Hu Zhengguo, leading Shen Yun, started their rounds back and forth, occasionally instructing her to jot down notes, likely adjusting operation scores. No further guidance was provided beyond that. It was clear that the goal was to sift through and find the top students for the advanced class. What puzzled Li Zheng was that if this was a selection process, there should be a comprehensive assessment, yet Hu Zhengguo lingered behind Wu Shu for a long while, noting down a lot, as if waiting for her to make more mistakes. Li Zheng, in contrast, received only a glance and was quickly passed over. Under the inspector's supervision, what was merely a mock experiment felt as tense as a final exam. Due to the numerous and close steps of the experiment, it grew quieter as it progressed. Meanwhile, people kept making errors, having to start over with new salt mud due to likely pH discrepancies. In a formal examination, redoing an experiment would result in a 20-point deduction. Considering time constraints, a preparation problem could virtually be deemed a 0. This tension persisted for almost an hour. Breaking the tension was a single beep. Many were familiar with the lab equipment, and there was only one source for that sound. The electronic scale. Hearing it meant that someone had produced a result. Looking in the direction of the sound, Li Zheng was placing a watch glass filled with white crystals onto the scale, watching the numbers as he filled out the experiment report. The same thought echoed in most people's minds. Him again? Damn it, Cobalt God, when will you come and deal with this guy? Can't stand it any longer. By the time Li Zheng finished filling out his experiment report, Shen Yun and Hu Zhengguo had also come over. Hu Zhengguo glanced at the electronic display before picking up Li Zheng's final report. Theoretical yield, 3.41 grams. Actual yield, 2.78 grams. Actual yield rate, 81.5%. All right, Hu Zhengguo said expressionlessly as he handed the report back to Li Zheng, take care of your stuff and go next door to do the content determination. Everything you need is ready. Congratulations, Shen Yun winked stealthily. When the other students heard this, they realized Li Zheng had made it into the elite class. Hu Zhengguo's elite experiment group meant meticulous cultivation, definitely grooming candidates for national gold. If he hadn't made it, then he would only have the unreliable upperclassmen to guide him, which pointed to an inevitable cannon fodder fate. No choice but to knuckle down now. Just as everyone was gearing up to compete. From the usual spot, a female voice followed. Wu Shu walked to the table with her watch glass, blowing the hair out of her face. Excuse me, are you done with the scale? Li Zheng hadn't expected Wu Shu to be so quick. Seeing her hands full of white crystals, he immediately felt a surge of joy and promptly moved his own product away. Nothing more to say, all hail. Wu Shu smiled and, without paying attention to Hu Zhengguo, placed her product on the scale. The scale showed 2.65 grams. Seeing the result, Wu Shu breathed a sigh of relief and began to record it. Li Zheng was shocked. Is this your first time conducting such a complex experiment? Guess so. Wu Shu quickly finished writing the report and turned to hand it to Shen Yun. Shen Yun took the report and, since he was sure it met the standard, only briefly glanced at it before asking, Teacher Hu, can she also? Wait a bit longer. Hu Zhengguo didn't even glance at Wu Shu but simply raised his hand. There were many deductions during the experiment procedure, go back for now. Li Zheng's eyes widened in disbelief. Deductions? Or too much time spent docking points just on her? Seeing this, Wu Shu quickly tugged at Li Zheng. All right, wait for me over there. Shen Yun, sensing the mood was off, also stepped forward to usher Li Zheng away. There will be a final score, and Wu Shu has a good chance. Yun. Hu Zhengguo frowned, putting words in my mouth again. Hu Zhengguo then turned to Li Zheng, take care of your product and get ready. Li Zheng glanced at Hu Zhengguo, made up his mind, quietly picked up his product. If Wu Shu doesn't make it into the elite class with her level, then I won't either. Regular class is fine by me, no big deal. Having said this, he returned to his seat with his product and instantly pulled out the latest volume of Demon Slayer provided by Zyok, starting to relax then and there. It wasn't until Li Zheng began flipping through the manga that Hu Zhengguo realized what had just happened. What do you think my class is? Do I have the time to deal with a middle schooler like you? Hu Zhengguo's face suddenly tensed, and he blurted out, what do you mean? Everyone in the laboratory jumped in fright, craning their necks to watch the spectacle. What now? Since when did Li Zheng start reading comics? Seeing the situation turning sour, Shen Yun tried to mediate. Teacher Hu, you go ahead with your work, I'll talk to him. It's probably about young people being loyal. What loyalty are they talking about? Did I say that this girl shouldn't go? Hu Zhengguo's face was flushed with irritation as he glared at Li Zheng, who was reading a comic, and ranted, waving his arms, this isn't being loyal, it's showing off. How old are you two, and what is your relationship anyway? In the midst of the sudden tirade, Shen Yun trembled and hardly dared to attempt calming things down anymore. It was Wu Shu who boldly picked up her own work and approached Hu Zhengguo. Teacher, please calm down, Wu Shu said expressionlessly, it has nothing to do with Li Zheng. Just put the blame on me, it doesn't matter to me whether I go to the finals or not. After saying this, she turned and left. Under everyone's gaze, she pulled a chair next to Li Zheng, tapped his head, and scolded with a laugh, are you crazy? Don't interrupt my comic reading. Li Zheng shifted his body to a different angle. Watching Li Zheng behave like this, Wu Shu couldn't stop laughing with her hand covering her face. Can you not be so adorable? I'm a tough guy, where's the adorable part? That line right there is even more adorable, haha. Unbeknownst to them, their carefree chatter only further infuriated Hu Zhengguo. Fine, good show from both of you, Hu Zhenguo said with a swing of his arm, his face grave as he looked at the other students. There are only 20 minutes left, everyone get to it. The students were too frightened by his menacing look to utter a single word, pretending to bury themselves in their work. In reality, they couldn't help but steal glances at Li Zheng and Wushu. Wushu, why is that woman mumbling with something in her mouth? Hum. Li Zheng, stop messing around, you know nothing about comics. The people around them listened to their back and forth. So frustrating. Everyone felt so frustrated. Damn it. Compared to this, what's even the point of being in a small group? Li Zheng has already won this one. Just at this moment of collective indignation, a man stood up. He yanked out his grey shirt and covered his belt with it. He carried his tray to the communal experiment station. He started measuring. The attention of everyone finally shifted. That group leader, damn it, he actually finished too. Hu Zhenguo also looked back at the electronic screen, 2.63 grams, not bad, go to the next lab. Shen Yun quickly picked up his notebook, oh you seeing Zhou, right? The seeing of stars, the Zhou of scorching, oh you seeing Zhou replied, picking up his tray and turning to look at Hu Zhenguo, pushing his glasses up, Teacher Hu, may I remind you that Wushu is a gold medalist from the International Physics Olympiad, ranked second in the world. Put her anywhere on this planet, and she's a first-class character, she probably doesn't even need your coaching. Hu Zhenguo's entire face began to visibly purple, staring at Ou Seeing Zhou, but was unable to utter a word. Furthermore, my own abilities are limited, I'd better leave the opportunity you so kindly provided for cultivating, to someone more outstanding, Ou Seeing Zhou concluded, then turned back to his seat, pulling up a chair next to Li Zheng and Wushu, watching comics without me. The duo thus became a trio. A trio that happened to be the top 3 students in the class. Hu Zhenguo stood stupefied on the spot for a while before, in a fit of rage, stormed towards the laboratory door. What kind of people are in this class? I'm done, you do it yourselves. Teacher, don't go, teacher. As Shen Yun ran after him, he didn't forget to turn his head towards Li Zheng and wink surreptitiously. For some reason. Thank you. Chapter 149. Ou Seeing Zhou adjusted his glasses while surveying the rather chaotic scene. Well, those cheating now are basically not worth befriending. Wushu, looking at a few individuals darting around, sighed and said, just ask us and it would have been fine. Why go through all this trouble? Naive, Ou Seeing Zhou chuckled. Getting close to us now is akin to opposing Hu Zhenguo outright. I guess no one will dare to talk to us after this. Wushu cursed with a smile, then why did you rush to board the sinking ship? Don't flatter yourself, Ou Seeing Zhou said seriously as he adjusted his glasses again. I only stand on the side of justice. I've been observing. In total, 1 hour, and Hu Zhenguo stood behind you for at least 20 minutes. He also frequently passed by you and Li Zheng. If it were an operational examination, he should examine each person equally, right? But he spent half his energy on you, clearly targeting you intentionally, which is unjust. That long? Wushu exclaimed, I didn't even notice. Anyway, why are you always looking this way? Don't overthink it, I was just paying attention to the teacher's movements, and secondly, Ou Seeing Zhou continued, waiting for the final grades to decide who enters the special class is acceptable to me, but the problem is, Li Zheng and I directly entered the special class without being assessed on our experimental operations. Your yields are not lower than ours, yet only you have to wait for deductions, which is a clear case of discrimination. Thirdly, Li Zheng has already given up on the special class. If I go alone, it would seem like I have no loyalty. Li Zheng looked at his righteous expression, somewhat disbelieving, do you consider all this before doing anything? Standard procedure, said Ou Seeing Zhou, before stuffing his shirt back into his trousers. Ignore him, Wushu scoffed. He's just overanalyzing, all those thoughts are after the fact. Ou Seeing Zhou's face tightened at those words, followed by a cold snicker, the ship of friendship capsizes so easily. Li Zheng and Wushu gave him 2 cold stares. Not funny. Ou Seeing Zhou faltered, isn't this what you guys usually like? Just then, Shen Yun suddenly leaned in, her brows slightly furrowed by the somewhat chaotic scene. Students who haven't finished the experiment shouldn't be whispering to each other. A few individuals who were wandering around then returned to their own stations. Then, Shen Yun waved to Li Zheng, come over for a moment. When the upperclassman calls, one must go. Li Zhang put down his manga and followed her out. Once Li Zhang was far enough away, Yu Xingzhou, scratching his chin, remarked, "Weird, in any case, our crimes seem heavier, right?" "It's different, Li Zhang hasn't signed a contract yet," Wu Shu pondered for a moment with pursed lips. "Let's both go out and apologize to Teacher Hu later, sincerely." Giving in so soon? The core of the contract is the national deciding results, we don't care, but if Teacher Hu deliberately blocks Li Zhang from going, he would be at a great disadvantage, Wu Shu nodded. "That's settled then, let's diffuse Teacher Hu's anger." Yu Xingzhou hesitated for a moment but eventually nodded, "Understood. If Li Zhang apologizes, I will too." In the corridor, Shen Yun, although just having felt secretly pleased, also spoke to Li Zhang with words echoing Wu Shu's sentiment. In the end, she just sighed. Teacher Hu truly doesn't have that much authority, but the national decision is too important for you. It's unnecessary to create difficulties for yourself. I suggest you still go and apologize, and it would be best to bring Wu Shu and Yu Xingzhou along. Li Zhang pondered for a moment and said, "Senior sister, when you spoke these words, I deeply reflected on my actions. I indeed did something wrong." "Right." Shen Yun breathed a sigh of relief. "No matter what, we still need to respect the teacher. You should hurry." "Not about that." Li Zhang shook his head solemnly. "At the beginning of the experiment, I wanted to help Wu Shu cheat by hinting at the tricks of the experiment. This was unfair and against discipline. Although Wu Shu didn't accept my kind intentions, it was still attempted cheating. I am willing to confess to Teacher Hu and other leaders." Shen Yun was so frightened that she quickly covered Li Zhang's mouth. "Who let you reflect so deeply? Are you afraid Teacher Hu won't find fault with you? A mistake is a mistake." Li Zhang stated calmly, "At noon, I kept pestering Wu Shu to tutor me in physics, which led to her dozing off later and getting caught by Teacher Hu. I wanted to make amends, but got carried away and made an even bigger mistake. I will learn from this and accept the consequences." "Oh no, oh no!" Shen Yun waved her arms frantically. Facing Li Zhang this time, she was indeed overwhelmed. "That's not important now. It's making Teacher Hu lose face that's the real mistake. How can you be so foolish at crucial moments? I'm not wrong in this matter. I believe you know better than I who is wrong." Shen Yun was now annoyed enough to pull at her hair. "Even if there might be injustice, you shouldn't appeal in such a manner. I naturally will try to convince Teacher Hu, or you could even talk to Teacher Hu in private. The mistake is in the attitude, the attitude. No matter what, you shouldn't treat a teacher like that." "I didn't talk back, I didn't disrespect him, nor did I engage in any theories. I merely gave up the privilege of a smaller class." Li Zhang said gravely, "Is that also not allowed?" "Li Zhang." Shen Yun clutched Li Zhang's arm and lamented, "Stop talking about reason, okay? Do you think this is the time to talk about reason? Who benefits if you continue to be stubborn? Would Teacher Hu admit to being biased against Wu Shu because of this? Could you even force him to apologize? That's his issue. I'll just do what I need to do." Li Zhang avoided Shen Yun's gaze, speaking with slight reluctance, "From a young age, I wasn't very clever, I only knew how to work hard. It wasn't just one or two teachers who were biased against me, I know that feeling." "Stay calm, Li Zhang, don't bring emotions into this," Shen Yun gritted her teeth. "At least here, you are actually the favored one. Teacher Hu originally had high hopes for you. Don't waste this opportunity, okay? Thank you, senior sister, really, thank you." Li Zhang finally looked at Shen Yun, his voice soft and smiling, "Previously, I was the one prejudiced against, with no one to stand up for me. Now, I've finally become the favored one, and I shouldn't stand up for others. This is how people grow up, right? I know, Wu Shu doesn't need me to stand up for her. It's just that I can't get over this myself." Li Zhang gently pulled down Shen Yun's arm. "Do I really have to apologize?" This time, Shen Yun averted her gaze from Li Zhang. I don't care anymore." Shen Yun's eyes reddened as she glared at Li Zhang. "One Yu, one Qi Yang, it's my first time mentoring students in my life, and I got to mentor two such outstanding students, capable of going to Prague, fulfilling my dream of a lifetime in chem competitions. Yet you guys, you bully people. Why must you cause trouble at this time? I. As Shen Yun spoke, she suddenly turned away and covered her face, crying, I can't handle it anymore, I just can't. You guys go die in the toilet, die in a cesspool. Li Zheng froze, his previously stern presence suddenly collapsed, becoming helpless. Senior sister, about this. What senior sister? Who is your senior sister? Shen Yun removed her glasses, wiping her tears as she scolded, is it easy for me? Running around every day, worrying about you too. Not to mention you being so thoughtless, just take Shi Yang alone, what's he eating so much for? Has he never seen meat before? I'm so mad I could die, if I mentor students again I might as well not be called Shen. Chapter 150. Shut up, now you start speaking human language. Shen Yun shrank away as she put on her glasses. Do you still remember the joke from last time? Actually, I didn't finish telling it. That senior who wrote a letter to the dean to report teacher Hu, do you know how much suffering he had to endure before he graduated? That senior, he too was a brave soul. Li Zheng hesitated for a long time before finally raising his hand to Shen Yun's shoulder, Senior. Get out of my way. Shen Yun shrugged off Li Zheng's hand and turned around with red eyes, pointing at him as she scolded, you go be the brave soul, and I'll be the little white rabbit, I deserve it. Isn't it an orangutan? Ah! I will hit you, believe it or not. Just as they were speaking, a joyful person appeared at the staircase, waving from afar, hey! I only left for 2 hours, how did things get out of control like this? Shen Yun trembled, quickly straightened her appearance, and bowed with a forced smile, Dean. Zhou Yi, with a smile, walked up to her. Seeing Shen Yun's reddish eyes, he immediately glared at Li Zheng, nice, bullying our chemical institute's beauty. She this. Li Zheng was at a loss for words. All right, you go back. Zhou Yi glanced at his watch and said, I've postponed tonight's events. From 7 to 9:30, continue with organic chemistry, let everyone know. This is good. Li Zheng's eyebrows lifted, and he then excused himself into the lab. Zhou Yi glanced into the lab, noticed Hu Zhengui wasn't there, smiled bitterly as he closed the door, and led Shen Yun to the stairwell, descending half a floor before asking, what happened? It's nothing. Shen Yun shook her head, arguing with Li Zheng. Ah! Zhou Yi was startled, a woman older by 3, holding gold bricks? I was wondering why you never had a boyfriend, turns out you have preferences. No. Shen Yun's lips quivered, and she was about to cry again, it's just my personal issue, you don't need to worry. Zhou Yi's expression gradually became solemn, and after a moment, he asked, did Li Zheng talk back to Hu Zhengguo? Shen Yun dared not speak. Zhou Yi continued, was it severe to the extent of it's either him or me? Shen Yun still did not speak. So, it wasn't that serious. Still silent. Good, I understand, it's nothing big, I'll handle the issues, don't worry about it. Zhou Yi patted Shen Yun with a laugh, I've spoken with the head of the Chemical Society about Shi Yang's matter, take it slow, there are still 3 days, no rush. With just a gentle pat from Zhou Yi, it felt decidedly substantial. Feeling reassured by Dean Zhou's control over the situation, Shen Yun finally calmed down. Then she cursed inwardly again. Look, this is what a composed, real man is like. Li Zheng, you deserve to find no toilet paper. Thank you, Dean. Shen Yun bowed gratefully, I will also keep an eye on Shi Yang's situation. Yes, go on. After Shen Yun left, Zhou Yi chortled to himself. People haven't even entered G University, but they learn the bad habits quite fast. After tidying up in the restroom, Shen Yun then went back to the lab with a folder, as if nothing had happened, and started recording each student's grades. During a break in recording, Li Zheng approached, trying to calm her down. Shen Yun did not even look at Li Zheng, just lifted her hand, stay out of it, I'm not talking to you. Great, senior sister is really angry now. Then I'll go and apologize to teacher Hu. Li Zheng turned around sorrowfully, I'll own up to it, attempted cheating, deserving of punishment. Stop. Shen Yun grabbed Li Zheng, her voice lowered, are you crazy, apologizing for such nonsense? That's just fanning the flames. Li Zheng turned around and raised his eyebrows, so, senior, you're not mad at me anymore. Shen Yun, infuriated to the point of gritting her teeth, pushed Li Zhang away. If there weren't so many people around, I would have hit you already. From the tone of her voice, it seemed she was no longer angry. Only then did Li Zhang return to his seat with peace of mind. What's the situation? Yu Xingzhou looked back and forth between the two. How did you manage to upset someone else? It's nothing, she's one of us, Li Zhang said with a smile as he picked up a comic book. Read that later. Wu Shu pressed down on the comic book. Did you apologize or not? Shall we go together? Yes, let's go together. The more people there are when we get scolded, the better the experience, agreed Yu Xingzhou, nodding. Don't get me wrong, we're just being cowards, it's not because we're afraid you won't sign the contract. Wu Shu couldn't help laughing and crying. Bro, do you have to be so blunt? Haha. Li Zhang raised his hand and laughed. Forget about it, this is over, let's just focus on the experiment. Whatever happens, happens, if not, no big deal, I don't like chemistry that much anyway. Me neither. Same feeling. The three people, indifferent towards chemistry, looked at each other. Then, they glanced around at their hard-working classmates. Suddenly feeling somewhat guilty. But, there was nothing they could do. After all, they were part of the Dragon Pearl group. 20 minutes later, all the students' results were collected. About half of them produced zero yield. The majority of the remaining students hovered between 30% to 50% yield, with 2 people exceeding 70%. It's worth mentioning that the people who ran around chaotically in the teacher's absence mostly got zeros. After a final selection, Shen Yun, after consulting in the office, confirmed a list of 8 people for a small class, with around 50% yield being the threshold. Li Zheng, Wu Shu and Yu Xingzhou were not on the list. The people who entered the small class looked at the trio from afar, feeling quite grateful. After all, these 3 had graciously given them additional spots. But as Yu Xingzhou predicted, for a long time, nobody came over to talk, even the crew-cut classmate who was in the same group as Yu Xingzhou kept his distance. The trio didn't hold a grudge against anyone because of this. After all, for most people here, just being able to stand there and participate in the provincial team selection required too much sacrifice, and they needed to avoid all risks that could affect their performance, rather than act on impulse. After the people from the small class packed up and left, Shen Yun also came back holding a stack of papers and reagents. She walked straight to Li Zheng's desk, placed the items down, and without looking at Li Zheng, said, "These are the experimental questions for later, I've provided all the materials you need. I have to look after the majority of the students, you 3 can take this class or not, fend for yourselves." After speaking, she puffed out her chest, raised her head, and huffed loudly before returning to the front to start analyzing the previous experiments. The senior is quite nice, Wu Shu said as he flipped through the papers. These are probably the training questions for the small class. Li Zheng quickly schemed them, mostly within reach. We'll ask if there's anything we don't understand. If all else fails, we ask old Sun, Yu Xingzhou said as he started taking photos with his phone. Brilliant! Li Zheng was delighted. I had forgotten about Sun Liang. Upon hearing this, Wu Shu and Yu Xingzhou both squinted and looked at Li Zheng. Are you close to him? Why do you know him?